Hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. You are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. You are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. You are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win, you're our champion. With you we can lose, we always win, you're our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome one. can. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome one. And there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome one. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome one, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're our This is the yom, this is the yom that Yahuwah has made, that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the yom that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the yom, this is the yom that Yahuwah has made. This is the yom, this is the yom that Yahuwah has made, that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the yom that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the yom, this is the yom that Yahuwah has made. The Torah is the way, the Torah is the way that Yahuwah has made, that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in Him, and be glad in Him. The Torah is the way that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. The Torah is the way, the Torah is the way that Yahuwah has made. The Torah is the way, the Torah is the way that Yahuwah has made, that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in Him, and be glad in Him. The Torah is the way that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. The Torah is the way, the Torah is the way that Yahuwah has made. Which is the way, which is the way that Yahuwah has made, that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in Him, and be glad in Him. Which is the way that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. Which is the way, which is the way that Yahuwah has made. I will enter His gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter His courts with praise. I will say, this is the yom that Yahuwah has made, and I will rejoice, for He has made me glad. He has made me glad, and I will rejoice, for He has made me glad. I will enter His gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter His courts with praise. I will say this is the young that Yahuwah has made, and I will rejoice, for He has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad, and I will rejoice, for He has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad, and I will rejoice, for He has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad, and I will rejoice, for He has made me glad. This is the young. This is the young that Yahuwah has made. That Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. And be glad in Him. But this is the young that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. But this is the young. This is the young that Yahuwah has made. This is the way. This is the way that Yahuwah has made. That Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. And be glad in Him. This is the way that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. This is the way. This is the way that Yahuwah has made. This is the young. This is the young that Yahuwah has made. That Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. And be glad in Him. This is the young that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. This is the young. This is the young that Yahuwah has made. God is the way. God is the way that Yahuwah has made. That Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. And be glad in Him. God is the way that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. God is the way. God is the way that Yahuwah has made. God is the way. God is the way that Yahuwah has made. That Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. And be glad in Him. God is the way that Yahuwah has made. I will rejoice and be glad in Him. God is the way. God is the way that Yahuwah has made. Allah Yahuwah. We praise Yahuwah yet again for yet another opportunity to be in in your presence to praise Abba Yahuwah with you. We told Abba Yahuwah for allowing us to see yet another Yom, to celebrate and commemorate a time of rest, a time that we cease from all our labors and rest our physical man, rest our spiritual man, rest our mental mindset. And so we are here to celebrate and commemorate. We want to begin this morning or this afternoon by reciting the Baruch of the Torah. Repeat with me. Baruch Yahuwah.
Baruch Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
Baruch is Yahuwah.
The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
For all eternity.
For all eternity.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who selected us from all the peoples.
Who selected us from all the people.
And gave us his Torah.
And gave us his Torah.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King
of the universe.
who gave us the Torah of truth.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And implanted eternal life within us.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Now we will have the reading of the Ten Commandments done by Mattathias, and it is so.
And it is so.
Coming from Devarim, 5th chapter, verses 6 to 22. Aleph. I am Yahuwah, your power, which brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, and from the bed of slavery. Bet, you shall have no other power before me. You shall not make you any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the mind beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them, nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah, your power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the Abbas upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that harm me and keep my commandments. Gimel, you shall not take the name of Yahuwah, your power, and falsify it, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name and empties it. Dalet, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah, your power, has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah, your power. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gates, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah, your power, brought you out of there through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore, Yahuwah, your power, commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Hey, esteem your Ab and your Im as Yahuwah, your power, has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahuwah, your power, is about to give you. One, you shall not murder. Zain, neither shall you commit adultery. Het, neither shall you steal. Tet, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. You, neither shall you desire your neighbor's issue, neither shall you covet your neighbor's bed, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness with a great voice. And he added no more, and he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me. And it is so.
And it is so. All right, Devarim chapter 6, verses 1 through 18, and it reads, these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah, your power, commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you are going to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah, your power, to keep all his statutes, his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the yamim of your life, and that your yamim may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yasharal, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily as Yahuwah, power of your Abbas, has promised you in the land that flows with milk and honey. Verse 4, Shema Yasharal, Yahuwah is our power, Yahuwah is a God. Hear, O Yasharal, Yahuwah, our supreme one, Yahuwah is a God. And you shall ahab Yahuwah, your supreme one, with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this yom shall be in your heart, and in your heart. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. To fall to what?
Bind to the mind.
To bind to the mind. Give the Torah access to your mind, your processing center. And you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land which he swore unto your Abbas, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Yaakov, to give you great cities which you did not build, houses full of all great things which you filled not, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you shall have eaten and be full, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power, and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after the power of the people which are round about you. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah be kindled against you, and he destroy you from off the face of the arid. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power, and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you. And you shall do that which is right in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the great land which Yahuwah swore unto your Abbas. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. All right, let us have another song, please.
If it had not been for Yahuwah on my side, tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah on my side? Tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah on my side? Tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah on my side? Tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah on my side? Tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah on my side? Tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah on my side? Tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah on my side? Tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for for Yahuwah
on my side.
tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah
On my side.
tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah
On my side.
tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah
On my side.
tell me where would I be? Where would I be if it had not been for Yahuwah
On my side.
tell me where would I be? Where would I be?
Come on, praise him, praise him, praise him. If it had not been for Yahuwah on my side, where would I be? He kept me in the cradle of his arms when I had been battered by the storm. Oh, if it had not been for Yahuwah who was on my side. He is a keeper. He is a comforter. He is a friend. He is everything that we need him to be, not just in times of trouble, but even in times of shalom, because he is our shalom. So it's important that we remember these things and that we stay grounded in him, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how frustrating life can become. It's very important that we remember and keep him at the helm of our lives. And it is so.
And it is so.
Now let us turn our attention to Yahush, the son of Nun, chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. We're going to read verse 7 and then we're going to recite verse 8. And it is so.
And it is so.
Verse 7, only be you strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to the Torah, excuse me, which Moshe, my servant, commanded you. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Verse 8, as I have tailored it to fit our personal time of confession, let us confess this together. I will not let this scroll of the Torah
I will not let this scroll of the Torah
depart out of my mouth,
depart out of my mouth,
but I shall meditate in it,
but I shall meditate in it,
Yom and Layla,
Yom and Layla,
that I may observe to do
that I may observe to do
according to all that is written in it.
according to all that is written in it.
For then I shall make my way prosperous,
And then I shall make my way prosperous.
and then I shall act wisely.
And then I shall act wisely.
Now look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor and tell your other neighbor, and you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor and tell your other neighbor, and you shall act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Now take your hand and place it over your heart and say, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
Come on, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act wisely.
I shall act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
Come on, I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Very important that we act wisely. And it is so. And it is so. Let us have another song, please. I've got a praise on. Woo.
I've got a praise on my lips, and I can't seem to resist. It's a praise that resounds all around. I've got a praise, and it's personal to me. It's a praise, and it's tailor-made from me. He gets the praise, and it's tailor-made from me. I've got a praise on my lips, and I can't seem to resist. It's a praise that resounds all around. I've got a praise that is personal to me. It's a praise that is tailor-made from me. He gets the praise and it's tailor-made from me. I've got a praise on my lips, and I can't seem to resist. It's a praise that resounds all around. I've got a praise, and it's personal to me. It's a praise that is tailor-made from me. He gets the praise, and it's tailor-made from me. I've got a praise on my lips, and I can't seem to resist. It's a praise that resounds all around. I've got a praise that is personal to me. It's a praise that is tailor-made from me. He gets the praise and it's tailor-made from me. Nobody but you deserves my praise. All that's within me every day. Allah Yahuwah is the highest praise. You get the praise and it's tailor-made from me. He gets the praise and it's tailor-made from me. Nobody but you deserves my praise. All that's within me every day. Allah Yahuwah is the highest praise. You get the praise and it's tailor-made from me. He gets the praise and it's tailor-made from me. Nobody but you deserves my praise. All that's within me every day. Allah Yahuwah is the highest praise. It's the praise and it's tailor-made from me. He gets the praise and it's tailor-made from me. I got a praise on my lips, and I can't seem to resist. It's a praise that resounds all around. I've got a praise and it's personal to me. It's a praise and it's tailor-made from me. He gets the praise and it's tailor-made from me. I've got a praise on my lips, and I can't seem to resist. It's a praise that resounds all around. I've got a praise and it's personal to me. It's a praise and it's tailor-made from me. He gets the praise and it's tailor-made from me. Nobody but you deserves my praise. All that's within me every day. Allah Yahuwah is the highest praise. You get the praise and it's tailor-made from me. He gets the praise and it's tailor-made from me. Nobody but you deserves my praise. All that's within me every day. Allah Yahuwah is the highest praise. You get the praise and it's tailor-made from me. He gets the praise and it's tailor-made from me. I got a tailor-made praise. I got a tailor-made praise. I got a
custom fit for him.
So let the praises begin.
I got
A tailor-made praise. I got a tailor-made praise. I got a tailor-made praise.
and it's custom fit for him.
So let the praises begin. I got a tailor-made praise. I got a tailor-made praise. I got a tailor-made praise.
And it's custom fit for him.
So let the praises begin. I got a tailor-made praise. I got a tailor-made praise. I got a tailor-made praise.
And it's custom fit for him.
So let the praises begin. I got.
Come on, praise him. Elijah, who up? Come on, praise him, praise him, praise him. Come on. A tailor-made praise. And it's custom fit just for him. Elijah, who are you're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy. He's worthy, he's worthy, he's worthy. Come on, he kept us through this, he kept us through that. And he continues to teach us, he continues to show us his heart. He's worthy of all praise. He's worthy of all esteem. He is worthy. And no matter where we find ourselves in life, he is yet worthy. He is yet committed to keeping his promises towards us, his chosen. So he deserves all the praise, all the esteem, all of our attention. And so that's what we give unto him because he's worthy. He's worthy. He's worthy. He's worthy. He brought us through heartache and pain. He brought us through sickness, and he continues to bring us through. And we owe him praise. We owe him to praise him. We owe him. And so we do want to give him praise. We don't want to rob him of his praise. We don't want to rob him of what belongs to him. And that is our total commitment and total attention unto him. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. Mishlei 15:8. The sacrifices of the wicked is an abomination, hateful and exceedingly offensive unto you, Abba Yahuwah. But the prayer of the upright, it is your delight. Romaiah 14:17-18. For the kingdom of Yahuwah is not meat and drink, but uprightness and shalom and joy in the Ruach Kodesh. For he that in these things serve Yahush is acceptable to Yahuwah and approved of men. And it is so. And it is so. Tehillim 34:15, the eyes of Yahuwah are upon the upright, and his ears are open unto our cry. Verse 17, the upright cry, and Yahuwah heareth heareth and delivereth us from all our troubles, and it is so. Micah, Masa 1:8, which is Acts 1:8. But we shall receive power after that the Ruach HaKodesh is come upon us, and we shall be witnesses unto him both in Jerusalem and all Judea and in Shamara and unto the uttermost parts of the earth. If someone ever asks you who you are or what you are, your number one answer, or your answer should be, I am a witness to his greatness. I'm a witness to his power. I am a witness to his compassion, and I am a witness to his long suffering. And it is so.
And it is so.
Moshe, Luca, which is Mark. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever you desire, when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you shall have them. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. We believe you, Abba Yahuwah, for all things. Ayah 33:4. The Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. Somebody say he's a life giver.
He's a life giver.
Yes, he is. He is a life giver. Right. Micah 3:8. But truly I am full of power by the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah, and of judgment and of might, to declare unto Yaakov his transgression, and to Yasharal his sin. And it is so.
And it is so.
Tehillim 1:1. Baruch is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the unrighteous, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the instructions of Abba Yahuwah, and he doth meditate upon it. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Abram 11:6. But without belief it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to Yahuwah must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And it is so.
And it is so.
Yahukanan 2:5-6. But whoever guards his word, his Torah, truly the Ahab of Yahuwah has been perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. The one who says he lives in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked. Yahukanan 5, Aleph 5:3, and all the way to verse 15. For this is the Ahab for Yahuwah, that we guard his commands, and his commands are not difficult, because everyone having been begotten of Yahuwah overcomes the world. And this is the overcoming that has overcome the world, our belief. Who is the one who overcomes the world but he who believes that Yahush is the son of Yahuwah? This is the one that came by water and blood, Yahush Mashiach, not only by water, but by water and blood. And it is the Ruach who bears witness, because the Ruach is the truth. Because there are three who bear witness, the Ruach and the water and the blood. And the three are in agreement. If we receive the witness of men, the witness of Yahuwah is greater, because this is the witness of Yahuwah which he has witnessed concerning his son. The one who believes in the Son of Yahuwah has the witness in himself. The one who does not believe in the Son of Yahuwah has made him a liar, because he has not believed the witness that Yahuwah has given concerning his son. And this is the witness that Yahuwah has given us eternal life, and this life is in his son. He who possesses the son possesses life. He who does not possess the Son of Yahuwah does not possess life. I have written this to you who believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah, so that you know that you possess everlasting life, and so that you believe in the name of the Son of Yahuwah. And this is the boldness that we have in him, that if we ask whatever according to his desire, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Let us have one more song, please. You know, yeah. How much water have you been drinking? Not enough. I just need that. No, not just that. Okay, come on.
You, I lift your name on high. You, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You, I lift your name on high. You, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You, I lift your name on high. You, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the state. My debt you paid, from the state to the grave, from the grave to the sky. You, I lift your name on high. You, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the state. My debt you paid, from the state to the grave, from the grave to the sky. You, I lift your name on high. You, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. lift your name on high. You I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth. You showed the way from the earth to the state. My debt you paid from the state to the grave. From the grave to the sky, you are, I lift your name on high. You are, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth. You showed the way from the earth to the grave. My debt you paid from the state to the grave. From the grave to the sky, you are, I lift your name on high. 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 You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the state. My debt you paid from the state to the grave. From the grave to the sky, you are, I lift your name on high. You are, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the state. My debt you paid from the state to the grave. From the grave to the sky, you are, I lift your name on high. 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 You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the state. My debt you paid from the state to the grave. From the grave to the sky, you are, I lift your name on high. You are, I have to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way from the earth to the state. My debt you paid from the state to the grave. From the grave to the sky, you are, I lift your name on high. 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 You are, I lift your name on high.
Come on, lift his name on high. He's worthy. He's worthy. Allah Yahuwah, you're worthy. You're worthy. You're worthy. He's worthy of all praise. He's worthy of all esteem. He's worthy. He's worthy. He's worthy. And we appreciate him. We praise him for every yom of our lives. We praise him for the great things that happen. We praise him for the things that are not so great. We praise him. We want to keep a praise on our lips and always a prayer in our heart. We always want to continue to show our gratitude and show how we appreciate him and how much we have him, because the things that he has done for us as a people, he woke us up. He didn't leave us in darkness. He didn't leave us in a stupor. He didn't leave us in a place of death, but he brought us to life. And so we do appreciate him and we do praise him. At this time, we're going to do our affirmations. And from our affirmations, we're going to go into our declaration. And then we're going to prepare to move into the next phase of our class. Yes, we have phases. First phase, second phase, and then we come back as Abba Yahuwah would allow us to do so. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right, let us recite this together. I purpose to develop my Ruach.
I purpose to develop my Ruach.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I am born again.
I am born again.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I have the life and nature
I have the life and nature
of Yahuwah in my Ruach.
of Yahuwah in my Ruach.
That life is the Torah
That life is the Torah
of Yasharal.
of Yasharal.
I purpose to walk
I purpose to walk
in the Torah of life.
in the Torah of life.
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahush,
Yahush,
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's knowledge
Yahuwah's knowledge
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's Ahab
Yahuwah's Ahab
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's power
Yahuwah's power
is in me.
Is in me.
Yahuwah's wisdom
Yahuwah's wisdom
is in me.
is in me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching me.
He is leading me.
He is leading me.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
The Ruach
The Ruach
HaKodesh
HaKodesh
of Yahuwah in me
of Yahuwah in me
is leading me.
is leading me.
I'll follow her leading.
I'll follow her lead.
I'll walk in the Torah.
I'll walk in the Torah.
Yahush,
Yahush,
our Mashiach.
our Mashiach.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now, as we prepare to do our declaration of healing and shalom, repeat with me, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
in the name of Yahush,
in the name of Yahush,
our Mashiach,
our Mashiach,
we subdue ignorance
we subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge.
with Torah knowledge.
And through this knowledge
And through this knowledge
of Torah truth,
of Torah truth,
we claim healing,
we claim healing,
shalom,
shalom,
deliverance,
deliverance,
and salvation.
and salvation.
We decree
We decree
Torah truth
Torah truth
in the lives
in the lives
of your people,
of your people,
our people, Yasharal.
Yasharal.
We unite
We unite
not to fight,
not to fight,
not to fight
not to fight
each other,
each other,
each other,
each other,
but the enemy
but the enemy
of our belief.
of our belief.
And it is so.
And it is so.
I decree and declare time of rest, shalom, and truth in Yahuwah. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Now let us stand before the Abba and let us bow before him as we prepare to seal our time of praise, prayer, and worship. And it is so.
And it is so.
Let us recite this together. May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
And the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you,
be desirable before you.
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before
be
you,
desirable before you.
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
We have just recited Tehillim 19 and 14, and it is so.
And it is so.
You may be seated in his presence. Once again, we want to give praise unto the Yahweh for allowing us one more time to be in his presence, to give him praise and esteem, and also to learn important principles and to show us how we are to live and govern our lives in this walk of life, for it is a walk of life, not a walk of death. Contrary to popular belief, people want us to believe that we are want us to believe that we're out of order and that we're legalistic and that we are truly have lost our minds. We're off our rockers, and if that's what people want to believe and think, so be it. But we know we're walking in truth. We know this is the command that he's given unto us as his people. And so it's important for us to understand that everybody's not going to receive what was given only to the children of Yasharal. So we can't expect people to accept what is our way of life to become their way of life, especially when it was not given to them, but given unto us. So we do appreciate him. Once again, we want to turn our attention to chapter 45. We stopped at chapter 45, verse 9, Bereshit. And our theme is let me make sure I don't want to say it in the wrong way. Uayigash. And Uayigash means, and he drew near. And he drew near. And so we want to pick up from where we left off on last Layla at verse 9. As we've read so far, we see now that Joseph has revealed himself unto his brother, and he couldn't handle or couldn't take it anymore. His heart was just so overwhelmed with dealing with his brothers. As I said before, anyone who has tuned into my teachings, you know that I try to bring those experiences and bring those things that we read about, make them where we are able to apply them to our lives now. And so it's important that we understand how to apply what was done then and their experiences to our way of life where we are now in this disposition. And so it's very important that we look at them and we see them for what they are. Yaakov was still upon them, dysfunctional or not, his hand was upon them and they were dysfunctional. And so we are seeing a time, a pivotal moment in their lives in chapter 44, also in chapter 45 of Bereshit, where we see that it has come to a climax. And now we see where this is where life now, the beginning of healing is able to take place, because they're able to confront and be confronted with the issues that cause such heartache. And so it's important that we understand that there's going to come a time in our lives that we're going to have to deal with the very things that we didn't want to deal with. Right. We're going to be confronted with the very things that broke our hearts. But it's important that when we are confronted or when we're faced with these things, that we walk away in victory and we walk away with shalom and we walk away in a hug. And so as we see that Joseph really was a very wise man in the time that they made sure that family matters stayed within the confinement of family. And there are times that we need to keep certain things missed. Why? Because he wanted to make sure that nothing was taken out of context. You have to remember, he confessed to them selling him. He confessed to them doing the things they did to him. And now, mind you, he's the governor now. So he had to be careful of how these things were presented so that things order. So he had to dismiss the present people in our midst concerning those issues. Now, once again, he dismissed them because I'm sure by living with them all the time he lived with them, he didn't want to put his on Front Street with them. Are y'all following me? Yes. Now, once again, somebody would say, well, what if you have somebody you could deal with? Okay, if you have somebody you can trust and you can deal with, that's a different scenario. But here it was that he put them out because he understood that they probably would not have understood all the things that had taken place. Right. So he wanted to be sure that nothing disrupted the flow of the of Abba Yahuwah in this situation, especially during the time of famine. So it's important that we walk this life and we be very careful and we use discretion when we're dealing and doing things. Right. And it is so. All right, chapter 45, and we're going to begin with verse 9. We're going to read 8 verses. And it is so.
Verse 9. Hurry and go up to my Abba. Hurry and go up to my Abba and say to him, thus says your son yourself, power has made me master of all Mitzrayim. Come down to me and do not tarry. Mm-hmm. And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen. And you shall be near to me, you and your children, and your children's children, your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. And there I will provide for you, for there are still 5 years of famine, mm-hmm. lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty. And behold your eyes, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin. See that it is my mouth that speaks to you. So you shall tell my Abba of all my splendor in Mitzrayim, and of all that you have seen, and you shall hurry and bring my Abba down here. And he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. Moreover, he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And after that, all his ox talked with him. Now the report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's ox have come, and it pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, starting at verse 9, looking at after things had finally got to their point, their pivotal point. Excuse me. And he says, hasten ye and go up to my Abba and say unto him, thus said thy son Joseph, Yahuwah hath made me sovereign of all Mitzrayim. Come down unto me, tarry not, and thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen. And dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children and thy children's children, and thy flocks and thy herds, and all that thou hast, and there will I sustain thee. For there are yet 5, behold your eyes see, and the eye of Benjamin, that it is mine unto you of my splendor in Mitzrayim, and of all that ye have seen, and ye shall hasten and bring down my Abba hither. And he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. And he kissed all his brethren and wept upon them. And after that his brethren talked with him. And the report thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brethren are come. And it pleased Pharaoh well and his servants. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, say unto thy brethren. And so he's saying unto him in verse 17, I'm just going to read that too. This do ye, lade your beasts and go get you unto the land of Canaan. So we see that this was the will of Abba Yahuwah for them to dwell and to be secured in this place, which he had already shown him in a dream or in a vision that this was going to be so. There are times in our lives that Abba Yahuwah will show us things and put things within our ruach. And we sometimes don't know how it's going to take place, whether it's going to be an easy road or it's going to be a tedious road or a hard road. But we do know once if he shows you something and it is a guarantee that it is from him, it doesn't matter what road he takes to get you there. Just be assured you're going to get there. Right. And so this is important for us to understand, because all roads that he puts us on are not easy roads. But it is to build us, and whatever is in our lives, or whatever he has to do in order to make sure that we don't forfeit what he's doing, he's going to do it. As you look at the life of Joseph, you see that Joseph, when he was younger, Joseph was very immature. Right. But once again, we can look at that, and I don't like to use the word say blame, but we have to be real with it. Yaakov showed favoritism, and because he showed favoritism, listen to what I'm saying. This is what began to shape Joseph and being the way that he was, because he made a difference between his children. Right. And so Joseph, and then at a young age, Joseph was only about 17 when he became what we would look at in today's term, power of attorney of everything that Yaakov had. Now you have to understand, Yaakov had other sons that were much older, but he chose Joseph because this was who he wanted to be over all his affairs and to take care of him in his old age. And so it is important that we understand these things that have come about to get a yield that is not going to produce things that are right. So Abba Yahuwah, I am persuaded, had to take him this route to take or bring a lot of things out of him. First of all, to get him to see himself and to see the errors of his ways. And then when he dealt with him, then he was able to deal with others. And so now he is in a position to where he realizes his mistakes. And so he weeps upon them, and he tells him, he says, now go get my Abba. But one thing that is important too, is that here it is heard in the house of Pharaoh. And all of Pharaoh's servants hear it. And this thing is acceptable. But it did not. And so Pharaoh, because you have to understand, Abba Yahuwah was in it. Pharaoh was willing to accept and do. And so he said, look, bring them on. And they're going to have the best. Just tell them to come on. Just tell them to come on. We got this thing and we're going to take care of it. So you have to understand, when Abba Yahuwah does a thing, it's done right from the beginning to the end. From beginning to end, it's going to be done right. Now, all the time, it doesn't feel great the way things are done, but we must understand there's a purpose and a plan when Abba Yahuwah is involved in it, when he's at the helm of it, at the helm of it. That's what's important. You know, many times we say, well, we need to get Abba Yahuwah involved. No, Abba Yahuwah needs to be at the helm of it, and we need to be sure that we are involved in the way that he wants it to be done, and not bring him in like we can bring him in and we can boot him out, because you can't boot him out of a situation.
That's right.
And never believe that, because you can never put him out of a situation. And so it's important. But we see here the ahab that he has. And once again, you have to understand why he clings more to Benjamin, because Benjamin is his brother by his Ema. And this is the way they were raised. So however you raise them is how they are going to conduct themselves. Right. And this is why he was drawn to Benjamin first, wept and cried on him. But look what he does to his other brothers. It says that he kisses them, and he fell upon and he kissed his brethren and wept upon them. And after that, his brethren talked with him. So I'm sure at that time that kiss represented forgiveness. It represented him showing that he was open to them. In spite of what they had done, he was still vulnerable, and he was still going to be there for them. Because he said, look, bring you, your children, and your children's children. Now, you know, for somebody to put out a proclamation like that and a decree like that means they understand it is not about them and their ability, but about the ability of Abba Yahuwah in them and through them. Right. That these things will be accomplished, because he said, not only am I going to take care of you, but I'm going to take care of your children and your children's children. Now you have to understand that's what, 3 generations. Yes. That he understood who he was, and he understood his purpose, and he understood the power that Abba Yahuwah had given unto him. And so he kisses them, which I truly believe, once again, was a symbol of forgiveness. Sure. And they talk. So, you know, in that time, even though it is not recorded what they said, we can imagine that they talked about those things, and they began to talk about why they possibly put him in that pit. We could really go on and assume that at that time, they were able to talk and hash out those situations that brought them to where they were. Are y'all following me? Yes. So it's important that we understand family does matter, and how we deal with issues matters as well. And this is important on both parts, that when someone is talking to you about an issue, be willing to listen. That's right. And then execute some action behind it. Yes. To make things better. Yes. Right. Because the person that is conveying this information is the person that's trying to get results. Right. And so we have to listen as well as talk. So I'm sure in that time they were able to hash some things out. They were able to tell him, well, you know, you came back and did this, and he was able to say this and that and the other. And they were able to bring this thing to a head and deal with it, and then move forward. Yes, right. Because that's the only way we can move forward, if we deal with the things that got us to the place that we are, especially when it's dealing with Mishpachah. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. All right. We're at verse 18. Let's think about verse 18. Yes.
Verse 18, and it reads, and take your father and your household, and come to me, and I give you the best of the land of Mitzrayim, and you eat the fat of the land. And you have been commanded to do this. Take wagons out of the land of Mitzrayim for your little ones and for your Isha. You shall bring your Abba and come. And do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the land of Mitzrayim is yours. And the sons of Yasharal did so. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the command, and gave them food for the journey. He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 chain garments. And he sent to his Abba this, 10 donkeys loaded with the best of Mitzrayim, and 10 female donkeys laden with the grain and bread and food for his Abba for the journey. So he sent his brothers away, and they left. And he said to them, do not quarrel along the way. And they went out of Mitzrayim and came to the land of Canaan, to Yahweh called their Abba. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, let's look at this as he takes them now. I'm persuaded that even in that conversation that he alluded and he made it known, okay, I'm going to give you all what I see is suitable for you, but I'm going to give to my baby brother born of my mother this amount, this portion. This is why I believe he said to them, now don't quarrel among yourselves. Don't let it be so. But this is what's going to be for you. Now you have to understand something. This is how, once again, you know that Abba Yahuwah was in it. Pharaoh didn't get upset, and none of which we have not seen recorded, Mitzrayim get upset about him giving more to them than possibly he had given to other people. But you have to understand, he was a governor, so what he had, he worked for. Are you following me? In other words, we can look at it. He had his own stash, and Mitzrayim had theirs. And so whatever he did, he was within rights to do so. Now, let me share something with y'all that happened when we were in Atlanta some years ago. And we lived in a shelter. And I want to show you the difference between doing right and wrong. We lived in a shelter. And at that time, I was pregnant with my third oldest son, Deshaun. And when we lived in the shelter, there were certain programs that were out there to help you get in places, apartments, homes, and so forth. And so we went and we spoke to, we had them come because they come and interview you, the family, and all that great stuff. And they would always call us the fam. They would always say fam, you know. And so there was where we lived, there was a side where the men stayed, and there was a side where the family stayed, and we stayed on the opposite side. And there was upstairs and downstairs, and there was a school. And Creflo Dollar Ministries is the one who ran the shelter. And so the thing of it is when we lived there, they would feed. They were still in the that they were supposed to be given to us as residents in the shelter. And so they would be fixing stuff. And so we would never stay there. We would go and get food from somewhere else because we didn't want to eat that mess. And like I say, they were stealing the best things. They would get donations from different grocery stores, and they would have all, because we would see them bringing stuff in there, but they would never give it to us. They would always give it to somebody else. And so, or they would take it home themselves. And so this one particular time we were talking to them, and we found out once again that they were stealing the food. And it was a man, like I say, that would come and they would interview the families to see if they qualified to get assistance. And so while we're in there talking to them and we are, chewing the fat, just talking and saying how we ended up getting there. And, we weren't trying to homestead in there. This was just a stopping place. And whatever we had to do to get out of there, we were going to get out of there. And so we were talking to the young man, and the young man began to talk about how things had happened in the place and how family was living there. I mean, family was working there. And what the family members was doing, now listen to what I'm saying, family members was giving vouchers to other family members that didn't need it. They were going and they were living in houses that they knew they didn't even need. And the only reason why they were doing it is because they said, well, you don't need to live in that house. You need to live in this house because it's better. So people like myself and my ish, when we were there, we were supposed to be able to get those things at an affordable price. But because you have people in there that had family members that was taking advantage of the system in the wrong way. So what ended up happening, they were helping people, but they were helping people in a manner that really caused everybody in there to get fired. And the whole system ended up crashing because of their foolishness. Now, you have to understand there's a right way to do everything and there's a wrong way. And that was the wrong way. So we ended up having to get an apartment, but we ended up having to get an apartment at the base rate. I mean, at the full amount. So we end up having to pay. And so my ish ended up having to work 2 jobs. 2 jobs because, and at that time, now y'all have to understand, and I'm just saying this, at that time, when we were in Christianity, we was like food stamps. Oh no, and we ain't gonna get on no food stamps. We are not getting no kind of assistance because we have belief and we believe that we are going to be able to make it. But it was hard because he was working 2 jobs and I was pregnant, so I couldn't get a job, and all of our children were still in a school age, and so this is what was happening. And yes, it still happens today. And so people were doing that. And so it ended up costing us. And we ended up having to get an apartment in an area that it was really extremely high. And then when we got in there, they were basically taking more money from us than they were supposed to. So that system was all jacked up, and everybody in there ended up getting fired. And let me show you the reason why everybody ended up getting fired. The guy that came and interviewed us was saying that, excuse me, there was a young lady in the office that liked him, but he did not like her. And so because he did not show her the same affection, she went and blew the whistle on everybody, and everybody in there got fired. But the program ended up being on pause because of all that they had done. Now they were giving vouchers out to homes, 2-story homes in the finest areas in Atlanta. And they were giving them to family members, and then family members was giving them to other people that didn't need them. So now you had a system that was jacked up because watch this, family members got in there and misused it, abused it. I'm not saying you're not supposed to help family members, but you help them when they're in need, not because you're trying to make them flex and help them flaunt.
Right.
And this was damaged. So that is something you don't want to do. And we ended up having to do that. And in the long run, it still ended up costing us so much.
Right.
So much. So I'm saying that for this reason, Joseph was doing what Abba Yahuwah told him to do. And watch this. And the system that was created supported that, because that was the reason why this system was brought forward. It's important that we understand that. And when we understand that, we will do things in a manner that's based upon integrity and based upon truth and not lies.
Right.
And this is why I believe Pharaoh understood and had no problem. No problem with helping them. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
No problem whatsoever. And so it is important that we understand you have to do right with what's put in your hand. You have to do right. Because if you don't, in the end, it's going to cause not just you, but it's going to cause innocent bystanders that's trying to, move forward in life, and they can't, because now this system probably will be phased out or completely shut down. All right, you follow me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. And so now here it is, and he says, and he tells them in verse 20, and he said, regard not your stuff, for the great things of all the land of Mitzrayim are yours. Now look at there. Now mind you, he has Mitzrayim people around him. And nobody said, hey, what you mean? The greatness of this land is theirs. They're just coming here for help. They're not supposed to be coming here to take it, all of it. But you have to understand, when it is Abba Yahuwah and he's doing it, you can be rest assured, whatever is said, regardless of who don't like it or who would have something to say about it, they can't do nothing about it anyway. Because it's the will and the plan of Abba Yahuwah. And it is so.
And it is so.
And the sons of Yasharal did so. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provision for the way. So they had stuff to go home with, but then they also had for when they came back. Now you have to understand, I'm persuaded that what was given to them was enough to sustain them while they were getting ready. Because you have to remember, not only was it them and their families, but it was also their servants. So it was going to take them more than a day to get back. So it was probably going to take them about some yamim, some days to get their stuff together so that they could be prepared to come back. Now listen what it says in verse 22. To all of them he gave each man changes of raiment. Changes. So it said he gave them changes of raiment, but it gives a number to Benjamin. He gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 changes of raiment. I'm persuaded he possibly could have given them 2 to 3, but it is expressed that he gave Benjamin 5 once again, because he is the brother from his Ema. And then you have to understand too, anytime if you have younger siblings and you know that situations came about that were not your fault, the years and the time that you miss with them, there are times you're trying to make up for that. You're trying to make up for those times to make up for that. You're trying to make sure that the time you were not there, they understand that it was not by choice.
Right.
You were not there because of circumstances and not because you just didn't want to be there. Now, once again, that's for a situation like that. All situations are not like that. Sometimes there is that, once again, that situation, that issue that's in the middle, that still has to be resolved.
Right.
And once it's resolved, whether that person says, well, whatever or however, as long as we know we've done what we're supposed to do on our part, then we can lay down at Layla in shalom and not be worried about, did I do that right? Hey, should I have done this better or what have you? So it's important that we understand that. And it is so. And so he gives him that. And to his Abba he sent in like manner 10 asses laden with good things of Mitzrayim, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and victuals for his Abba by the way. And so he sent them away, and they departed. And he said unto them, see that you fall not out by the way. In other words, he's saying, look, because he already knew. And 9 times out of 10, they probably were already beginning to discuss certain things before they left. And this is why he addressed them and said, look, now don't fall out. In other words, don't y'all get to arguing and brawling down the way. Just make it home and do what needs to be done. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important that we understand those things. And so it's important that we see these things. Once again, when we're dealing with mishpachah, it is very important that we deal with it according to the writings. Because if we don't, we find ourselves brawling. And if we're not physically brawling, then we are verbally brawling. We can say things that can hurt to the core. Are you following me?
Yeah.
So it's important that we be careful how we deal. And so Joseph, not just being in this position, but also was matured, and he was able to handle things in a different manner. And so now, once again, we see the beginning, and we also see the results of willingness on both parts to heal and to move forward. And it is so.
It is so.
And it is so. All right. And it is so. Let us all right, let us finish reading, please. Verse 25.
And it is so. 7 verses.
8.
Verse 25. So they went up from Mitzrayim and came to their Abba Yaakov in the land of Canaan. Then they said, Yosef is still alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Mitzrayim. Yaakov was stunned, for he did not believe them. But when they told Yaakov all that Yosef had said to them, when they saw the wagons that Yosef had sent to transport him, the spirit of their Abba Yaakov revived. And Yasharal said, enough, my son Yosef is still alive. I will go to see him before I die. Chapter 46. Yasharal sent out with all that he had and came to Beersheba, and he offered sacrifice to Yahuwah of his Abba Yaseh. That night Yahuwah spoke to Yasharal in a vision. Yaakov, Yaakov, he said. And Yaakov replied, here I am. Yahuwah said, I am Yahuwah your Savior, power of your Abba. Do not be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim, for I will make you a great nation there. I will go down with you to Mitzrayim, and I will also bring you back. Yosef will put his hands on your eyes. Yaakov left Beersheba. The sons of Yasharal took their Abba in the wagons Pharaoh had sent them to carry, along with their children and their Ishah. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, this is awesome. Now, you have to understand, there's some things that was, when you read out of different translations, sometimes things are missing. So you're thinking, well, why would he have to revive? Well, he fainted. This is why he had to be revived. And it almost to a point where you would think he had literally died, but he fainted. And it says, excuse me, in verse 25, and they went up out of Mitzrayim and came into the land of Canaan unto Yaakov their Abba. And they told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and he is ruler over all the land of Mitzrayim. And his heart fainted, for he believed them not. And they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the Ruach of Yaakov their Abba revived. Also, there is a rendering in Jubilees, but in Oh my, just escaping just that quick. Help me out, Yahuwah. And huh? Yasher, thank you. I forgot just that quick. Thank you. In Yasher, that there is a saying in Yasher that when he actually literally died, that he passed out because his heart could not handle the information. If you remember, also this same not definition, but this same thing happened to Sarah when word got to her about Abraham, and the same thing in the scrolls of Yasher, that when the words got back to Sarah that Abraham was talking about sacrificing Isaac, that she fainted. It almost possibly had a heart attack. And then when she was revived and she saw him, because her heart couldn't take it, she actually died. That is one of the saddest things to me ever, you know, and it's hard to keep from getting emotional about that, because she basically, her life was lost prematurely. Now somebody would say, but how could that be? Because she allowed a lie from the enemy to take her out of here. Fear hath torment. And when you are walking in fear, you will be tormented. Right. You'll be tormented. And so here it is. I believe, according to, once again, in the scrolls of Yasher, his daughter-in-law began to sing in his ear and began to sing about the things that had come from Mitzrayim. She began to sing to him about Joseph. She began to sing to him about these things. And this is how he was revived. Don't tell me that singing and music is not a part of the condition that we're in now. Right. Music is very important to our lifestyle and to our vibration, to who we are. This is why it's important that we listen to the right kind of music. Are you hearing me? Yes. Music with the tempo of 432 is the best music. Even the lyrics of music. Now, you know, some of us, there are some songs that I like I like them because the person has energy, and it's not so much the words, but they have so great control of their vocals. Right. You have some people that can sing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You got some people that can sing Aleph, Bet, Gamel, Dalet. They can sing. And I mean, they can sing that makes the hair on your arm stand up. They can sing. Are you following me? Yes. And like I say, when you find people like that, that's a gift. And I enjoy listening to them. And so it's important that we understand, but we also have to understand, you have to be careful, just like with as we drink wine and anything that has alcohol in it. You have to do what? Drink responsibly. Right. You have to listen responsibly, because you can't listen to everything, because everything can't get in our ruach. Right. Are y'all following me? Yes. But I will tell you this. The CD that U3 has, you can listen to it in your sleep. You can listen to it when you're conscious, when you're unconscious. You can listen to it when you're exercising. You can listen to it when you're riding. You can listen to it whenever, because it's to minister to your soul. Are y'all following me? Yes. It is to minister to you. And so it's important that we understand these things. I ain't selling nothing. I'm just being truthful. It's very important that we understand this. Why? Because once again, these are the things that we need. But she was able to sing in his ear. She was able to minister to him. And this is why when people have the gift to sing, I encourage them, sing. I have to sing, but I can't sing like my children can sing. And I can't sing like my Ish can sing. But they can sing. You know, we say they can sing. They can sing. And so, but singing is important. It's very important. And she was able to bring him to a place where he was revived. He was revived. That's why singing is important. Very important. Yes. You know, you hear about people saying, child, I'm going to this concert. Why? Because people understand the power of song. That's right. They understand the power of rhythm. And because we are a rhythmic people, you know, we have the drums automatically in us. Oh, yeah. We have these things in us. And that's why music, you know, they say music calms the savage beast. Yes. It's the truth. Music also brings forth healing. That's right. That's why we have to listen to certain things. And some things we have to, in spite of how we like how a person sounds, we have to disregard it, because we have to look at what kind of effects is it doing to our bodies. Right. So it's important that we understand these things. I have music, I do. I really do. I enjoy all styles or genres of music, right?
Yes.
And so, but I also learned you have to be selective in the stuff that you listen to. You know, I have some music I like, and my son, he makes beats. And so there's some music that I listen to, you know, when I need that pick me up and that get me up, get me going, so forth. And I'll turn on some of that D-Man and listen to it. And it helps me. It helps me stay focused, and it helps me to move forward. Not that my mind and I'm all over the place. Please understand that. But you know how you need that pick me up and get up and go. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
You know how you get that music. Your what is it? Your what is it? Your theme music.
Yeah.
Get you up going. Like, okay, I need this now. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's shake it off. Let's do what we got to do. And we do this. But she was able to revive him with song, and he was able to listen, because you have to understand, when that came from them, I'm sure that sparked and brought back. They were the ones that told him he was dead. Now you're going to tell me he's alive? You know, that's a lot of emotion. That's a lot of adrenaline running through your body at one time. Because you have to remember, he's not senile. Y'all the same ones brought me his coat all bloodied up and said he was dead. But now you come back and tell me he's alive? That's a lot. That's like cold and hot coming together at one time. Are you following me?
Yes.
And that makes what? Thunder. Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes thunder.
Yes.
So you have to understand that's a lot of information coming at one time. And so she was able to do this. And so to bring him back. And then and Yashua said, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die." After she had put enough and spoke enough or sung enough into him, he said, "Now I don't need to hear nothing else. I'm convinced because I've heard this much." Now you have to understand, he went to took his journey and all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices unto Yahuwah of his Abba Isaac. He had to do that. Why? Because he had to be sure that this was the path that he was to take. This is why in everything we do, it is important that we always lead it by prayer and then chase it by prayer. Lead it by prayer or with prayer and then chase it with prayer. Abba Yahuwah, is this your will for my life? If this is your will, then show me it is your will. Are you following me? It's very important that we understand these things because these are the most important things of our lives. And remember, Yaakov told Abba Yahuwah, he said, everything you do, I will always make sure that I offer to you and that you are included. Never, never, ever take him out. And I said before, when I say take him out, in other words, we can never remove him from the situation, but we can ignore his presence in a situation.
Right.
And if you ignore his presence in a situation, then guess what happens? You will find yourself being in a very bad situation. So we can never ignore him being in our lives. And this is important, very important for us as a people, very important. And he says, now we'll go. Let me see, make sure I miss my spot. All right. And so he says, now, it is enough. He said, and yet I will live and I will go and see him before I die. And so he wanted to, once again, make sure that this was the plan of Abba Yahuwah for him to take this journey. And Yahuwah, now listen, and Yahuwah spoke unto Yashua in the vision of the night or the Layla and said, Yaakov, Yaakov. And he said, here I am. And he said, I am power. I am Yahuwah, thy power of thy Abbas. Fear not to go down into Mitzrayim. Because you have to understand, he wanted to be sure that this was truly from Abba Yahuwah. When we are in doubt, we must pray it out.
That's right.
We must pray it out. He said, for I will there make of thee a great nation. He said, this is going to be the start of what I told you concerning your life. Many times we can make connections, and many times we make connections and then we lose connections and we make connections. But this was the connection that Abba Yahuwah had set forward for his life. And with this connection, he said, now through this connection, I'm going to make your life great. You're going to be a great nation. Are you hearing me?
Yes. Yes.
This is why it is important that when we are connected with people, that we understand the purpose of our connection. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's very important. We said it, me and my third oldest son was talking a while back, and I said it. A lot of times we really don't take social media for what it really is supposed to be.
Right.
It's supposed to be a place that we come to socialize and get to meet people, but it actually has become something more than that. Now, I'm not saying everything that is done on it is right, and I'm not saying everything that's done on it is wrong, but I am saying that you can meet some great people on here. But now that when we meet, let's understand our purpose.
Right.
Are you following me? You didn't just come in my life for naught, and I just didn't come into your life for naught. There's an exchange of things that have to take place.
Right.
And this is important for us to build upon that and move towards it. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
But many times we get a lot of people that still have that I am a loner. I am an island, and I stand alone.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying you have to connect with everybody, because everybody you cannot connect with, because everybody does not have the same mindset. Everybody is not on here to connect for the right reason.
Right.
But for the ones that are you hearing me?
Yes.
I commend you. I applaud you. I appreciate you. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. And this is what we have to understand. And this is why I believe this platform is here for us. There are people all around the world. There are people all across the land. All across the land. Let me make that straight. All across the flat land that we are able to deal with in different places. And we're able to connect. But we don't know how long this platform is going to remain. So it's important that we use wisdom and use it wisely to make those connections. Very important. And so he went because he wanted to be sure that this was what he was supposed to do. He said in verse 4, I will go down with thee into Mitzrayim, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. Now you have to understand, this is also to verify, and also I'm sure with him to bring clarity to his choice of choosing Joseph, because he was also the choice of Abba Yahuwah. Once again, in our parenting, we have to be careful so that we don't show partiality. But this was to confirm that Abba Yahuwah had chosen him to do the things that he had done, and that he was going to be the ones that would put his hands. In other words, when he came to that time of death, he would be the one that would be by him as he so desired. His desire was granted. But once again, it's important that even in our choosing, and even when Yahuwah does choose that person, that we still don't show favoritism.
Right.
And we don't be partial.
Right.
Very important. You know, we dealt with that in Christianity for so many years. You don't want to deal with that. And now that we're in truth, we really don't want to deal with that. You don't want to deal with those type of issues. And so it's important we understand that. Verse 5, and Yaakov rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Yasharal carried Yaakov their Abba, and their little ones and their wives in the wagons with which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. Because remember, they only had asses and so forth, but now they went back in limousines, if you would want to use it in that term. He sent for them to come back as what? Royalty, because that's what they were. He brought them to a place, and he brought them in as royalty. Can you imagine people seeing them coming in with wagons? Not riding on beasts of burdens, but they coming in with wagons, riding in them. So you have to understand, he brought them in a manner that people that he could show the people that he esteemed them. And so it's important that we understand these things. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
Very important. Now, once again, and Pharaoh was involved in this. So he wasn't doing it on his own. Look what I'm saying, as I said in the beginning. He was not doing something that Pharaoh was not aware of. People get positions, and when family members get positions to help people, it's important that the people you're trying to help and the system you use or you are trying to use is supportive of what you're doing. If not, it can really become bad. And that situation in Atlanta became very bad because people lost great jobs, and watch this, and people lost those homes. So now people are homeless because of somebody's foolishness. Right. So once again, Pharaoh was involved in this, and Pharaoh supported him in what he was doing. And so he himself said, now take that and do it. Once again, you want to make sure if you're doing stuff like this, you have directors and people that are saying, yes, we are for it. We're going to help. We're going to give this, that, whatever you need, just let me know, or whatever, you take it out, what have you. But you have what? Their approval.
Right.
And nothing is being done being done secretively.
Right.
It's being done in the open. And it is so.
It is so.
And it is so. All right, let's take up with verse 6, please.
And they took their cattle and their goods, which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Mitzrayim, Yaakov and all his seed with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought with him into Mitzrayim. And these are the names of the children of Joshua, which came into Mitzrayim, Yaakov and his sons, Reuben, Yaakov's firstborn. And the sons of Reuben, Hanok, Phalu, and Hezron, and Carmi. And the sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, and Jachin, and Zohar and Shaul, and the son of a Canaanitish woman. And the son of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the sons of Yehuda, and Onan, and Sheba, and Pharez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Pharez were Hezron and Hamul. And it is so.
And it is so. Going back over who's going in. And they took their cattle and their great things which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Mitzrayim, and Yaakov and all his seed with him, his sons, and his sons' sons with them. Very important that we see the transition. Now it says in the land of Canaan, verse 6, but what he had acquired in Padan Aram, he gave to Esau in return for his share in the cave of Machpelah. And his daughter, that is Dinah, possibly her maids are included as his daughters. And so it's important that we see that it wasn't just his sons, it was his daughters. Even when we read, there are times you read and you start thinking, well, did just all the men go? Where were the women? Are they just categorized as wives and daughters, no names, no statute? You have to understand interpretation, transliteration. These type of things that constantly put us in a position where many times men will use these things and say, well, the women were of no significance. But you have to understand, if you have no women, you can't even bring forth seed. Are you hearing me? You can't bring another generation, because what are you going to do? It's important that you understand we are very important to this walk of life. We were never taken out. It was man's doing, not Abba Yahuwah's doing. That's important for us to understand. But once again, you got people that interpret from where they sit and from what they want to say and how they want to view things. So it's important we understand that. His sons' daughters, Sarah, the daughter of Asher, and Jochebed, the daughter of Luai. And this leaves the plural of his daughters. It says unexplained, and suggests that in genealogical lists, the plural is generally used even for one. And the sons of Dan, Hushim, and the sons of Palu, Eliab. He therefore maintains that Sarah was already born and is meant, but not Jochebed, according to tradition, she was born as they were entering Mitzrayim. Although in the view of the rabbi, she is hinted at. So once again, they had more than just 2 or 3 daughters. Because if they only had 2 or 3 daughters, how in the world could he make them as the stars of the sky, in the sky, or make them as the sands of the sea, if you don't have enough women? Are you following me? That makes absolutely no sense. So once again, you have to understand, and you have to see when there is a discrepancy in the transliteration and in the translations of the writings to make you believe that women were not important. Yes, we are important, because without women, there can be no children. There can be no children. So it's important that we understand that. All right, now, Yaakov and his sons, verse 8. Yaakov is included in the 70. Only Yaakov and his sons stood out so that their names were particularly worthy of being mentioned. But the rest of the 70, although righteous, did not reach their height. So in other words, just saying these were the ones that needed to be spoken of and that were of importance. Not saying the rest of them wasn't important, but you have to understand it was very important to see that they made it into Mitzrayim. Verse 10, the sons of the Canaanitish woman, This proves that the wives of the sons, some of them were Aramean. But once again, we must remember the reason why we see the Canaanitish son Shaul is because this was Yehuda's son. And this was his son. And so this is why he's mentioned. But we can't say that everybody else married outside. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
People take one situation
Right.
and then make it a rule. It was not a rule. It was an exception,
Right.
not a rule. And so with that being said, I want to read this because I want to show you once again, as you know I do, I want to show you the different translations and what is promoted and what is sanctioned as truth. And this is why people get out there and begin to do what? Have mixed marriages, because people think it's okay.
Right.
And it is not. And so it says, this proves that the wives of the sons, now listen at this, were Arameans, Mitzrayim, Edomites, and Midianites, but not Canaanites. It is especially mentioned in connection with Shaul to indicate that Simeon did wrong in marrying a Canaanite woman. Now, once again, you have to understand that the perspective from this point of view is because you have to understand this interpretation is interpreted by Ashkenazis, which are what? European. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And the Canaanites are to be known as being what? Melanated. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
So this is why they would put it in this manner. Everybody else, if you do your research and you look from their perspective, even Mitzrayim, they are saying they were Europeans with blue eyes and long straight hair. So when you read these things, you have to understand where they are interpreting it from, their perception, and why they interpret it in the manner they did. The Canaanite women were always known to be melanated. And this is why they said, once again, they could marry everybody else. But in terms of today, what many people would say, they couldn't marry a black woman. But we know we are not black. Are you following me?
Yes.
Just using that to help us to understand why these things are done. And this is why when we read certain things, we need to understand where they are drawing their conclusions from. And when they draw their conclusions from this, we don't have to follow that because we know it's erroneous.
Right.
It is erroneous. So it's important we understand these things once again. And so this is why they're saying it. He was the son of Dinah, who had been outraged by Canaanite Shechem. And when the latter was killed, Dinah refused to leave until Simeon swore that he would marry her and adopt the child she was to bear, which once again, that's their interpretation. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That's their rendering. There is also another interpretation. Another interpretation is that the daughter that Joseph married is also his cousin, because that was the daughter of Dinah, that the priest and his wife adopted her and made her royalty. And he ended up marrying his cousin that was born by Dinah and Shechem. Are y'all following me? And this is why Joseph did not marry outside. Are you following me? Outside of his culture, or outside that Yahuwah would bring them this far and make sure that they didn't marry anybody outside of their culture and outside of their tribes, right, to get them to a point, and he get there and then he married somebody outside of that. Even though Yehuda did, but watch this, she ended up dying. And both of his sons did too, except for one, Shaul. Are y'all following me? Yes. So once again, we got to make sure we're understanding that Yahuwah does not endorse mixed marriages. It is not a rule, but these are exceptions sometimes. Are you following me? Yeah. Very important for us to understand that, because then people will go and they'll start saying, well, you can marry whoever you want. No, you can't. Because when it's all said and done, if you truly believe and you are following in the manner that we're supposed to, and we know that we're going home to a land that is going to be given by lot to tribes, then how does the person you marry fit into that equation? Now, many would say, well, we ain't pure. We may not be pure, but we know who we are. Are y'all following me? Yes. And we ain't no people. And once again, people won't always say, and I know many people gonna get mad at me for saying it, but it's okay. Understand, the Europeans are not the Edomites. That's right. They are not the Edomites. And you have to understand, they don't follow the description. They are unable to match the description.
right.
Now we start being like every police out here. Well, what did he look like? He looked like a black man. Well, how tall was he? Well, he looked like a black man. That's all we know. He looked like a black man. So now every man that is on the streets is a candidate to be antagonized and to be harassed because that's the description. He looked like a black man. So when we ask, okay, well, what they look like? Well, they look like this. No, let's look at the description. Not only the description, let's look at the characteristics. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand these things so that we ourselves don't find ourselves outside doing things that are wrong. Because marrying somebody outside of it, when it comes time for your allotment and it comes time for you to have, how is it going to be broken up? Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's very important to understand these things. Like I say, even though people don't like to talk about it because they feel like, well, we can marry who we want to because we're in a new era. And we might be in a new era, but we abide by the original.
That's right.
We abide by the original rules and we don't change that. And it's not legalistic. It is our way of life, and we will continue to follow our way of life.
That's right.
Because this is what pleases him, and pleasing him is all that matters.
That's right.
So it's important for us to understand these things. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important. And like I said, be careful with the interpretation, because if you read the wrong thing, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to find yourself all misconstrued and all jacked up in your interpretation and understanding of the writings.
Right.
Because then people start believing, well, we can get with whoever we want to. Now the bloodline is contaminated.
Right.
See, people don't realize that your children are a product of you and the person that you get with. Now, because it's not just to us, but to our children. Now, how do you think that's going to work? How do you think your child is going to get something when you only get a portion of it? And because when we marry, we follow according to our ish. That's the land. But if a woman is not married, then whatever land is there, that comes through her tribe, she gets that land. Are you following me?
Yes.
But if you are married, you take on the land that you marry into. Are you following me? And this is why Abba Yahuwah wanted to make sure that we married accordingly. But I believe that there is a plan that Yahuwah has because of all of the mixing and all of the because we can't really say we're all pure, and many of us really don't know where we are, but we do know we are a part of the tribe. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
We do have our lineage, and we do have Mitzrayim, that we are Hebrew. Are you following me? Or Ibram.
Yes.
And so we do know this. But the important thing is still walking circumspectly. Are you following me?
Yes.
Walking circumspectly. Don't walk frivolous and walk all outside saying, well, I don't know, I'm not purebred, so it doesn't matter, because even though I'm not pure, we don't know if she's pure, so we can marry whoever because we all contaminated anyway. That's the wrong way to think. Because you just continue to perpetuate a system that's already in place. Why do you think they're throwing in a swirl light? That's a whole nother story, though. Whole nother story. So it's important that we be careful of the things that we do. Very important. Are you hearing me?
Yes. Yes.
Very important. All right. Now, after they go through the dialogue and he talks about the sons and he gives all this, and we get to verse 13, and we begin to see these things. Once again, very important for us to these the names and in the order that they flow in. Very important for us to understand that.
Okay.
Now, when we look at from the height, 30 and 3, inclusive of Yaakov, only 32 are enumerated. The additional one was Jochebed, who was born by the walls of Mitzrayim as they entered the city, as it is written, Jochebed, the daughter of Luai, who was born to Luai in Mitzrayim. Her birth was in Mitzrayim, but not her conception. So she was born in Mitzrayim, but she was not conceived in that. So in other words, she still came from Canaan into Mitzrayim. Are you following me?
Yes.
She was born there. So they are not counting her as being of Mitzrayim, but she was in Mitzrayim. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know how many people come, like say she was not a native because she was, well, we say now if you're born in a place, that's where you are a native of. But according to this, wherever she was conceived is where they basically said she was a native of. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Nowadays, it's different. Just like when you see, when people count the age of a person, of a baby. Normally, you know, I think it was in China, where they began from the birth of the baby. Well, from conception all the way to the birth. We know a woman carries a baby for 9 months. So once that baby is born at 9 months, they continue to count. 9 months, 1 day, 9 months, 2 days, 9 months, 3 days, correct? And they go on and they go on and they go on. Yeah, they do that. And this is why when you see a baby and they say that baby don't look like that baby a year old, is because they count life from conception, not when it comes out of the womb, which really makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Because you start thinking the baby's a day old. No, the baby is not a day old. The baby is 9 months old plus a day. Truthfully, because that's how you keep up with the life. The baby is understanding. This is I just want to take a quick sidebar. This is why many times the doctors, and you have those old heinous murderers that endorse abortion because they say a baby is not alive until it is out of the womb. That is a lie. And if we follow that theory, then we follow the theory that they say you can get an abortion because until that baby is out the womb, that baby is considered not separate and not alive. That's a lie. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That is a lie from the devil. That's a lie. Because the moment conception takes place and that is a zygote and that heart begins to beat, that is life. Whether that baby has legs, whether it has anything, the beginning of life begins with the heart.
Right.
And the moment that heart starts beating is the moment life is there. That's life. And this is why they endorse 6 months and 7 month abortions, because they say until that baby is outside the womb, and even partial abortions, that until the baby's head, they flip that baby, and until the baby's head is completely out, that baby is still, I know it's graphic, but this is something that's important for us to understand. That these things are going on and we can't be blinded by the things that's taking place. And they have that baby hanging out of the womb just enough. They flip it and the baby's neck and let the baby die. Then they say it's really not all the way ahead, is still. And they take the body parts and they sell the body parts. They do horrible things to those babies. But they say, oh, but see, they're not really technically considered a human or considered really alive until they're outside the womb. That's a lie. Right. That is a lie. The moment that heart begins to beat, that's life.
Right, right.
And from the time that baby is out of the womb, that baby has lived for 9 consecutive months, 8 months, 7 months, 6 months. I don't care when that baby is born. That baby, even if that baby is born prematurely, guess what? That baby was still alive for 5 months and life continues on. Life doesn't stop and start over out of the womb.
Right.
It continues. It continues. And we have to be willing to see that and not play into that mess.
Right.
They are alive. And we must continue to make it known we know they're alive. Mm-hmm. That's why I hate when people get to my, well, you know, because they had an abortion and if they got raped, I don't care if they got raped, and understand I'm not being insensitive. But life is life. Well, they're going to be a murderer. You don't know what they're going to be. You got people that were born between 2 parents that seem to be conscious and seem to be straight, and they had a murderer, a rapist. So understand something. You don't know what that child is going to become. It's still no reason. Well, the baby's going to be deformed and it's going to have a hard way to live. We were given life. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
So we ought to not deny life. Very important for us to understand these things. Very, very important that we don't play into those things. And we start agreeing that, you know, well, abortion, because if you agree to it on them terms, you agree to it on any other terms. I don't agree with it at all, period. Right. Have the baby and give the baby up if you don't want it.
Right.
You don't have to tell who you are, but don't discard the child. Don't let somebody murder the child. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And if you found yourself in one of these situations, repent and ask Abba Yahuwah to forgive you, and then forgive yourself, and don't do it again, and rise up and move forward. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's important that we understand these things. I want to take that sidebar to understand, like I say, understanding they did it from conception, from the place they were conceived. And then, you know, because we say, well, I was born here, so I'm a native here. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That's why they be having all them problems when people are pregnant on airplanes and they give birth in the air. They trying to figure out, well, who they gonna say they were born, you know, what country or what place were they born in? Just go from conception. You can deal with all the rest of that. Are you following me?
Yes.
That's the best way to do it. Because now you ain't got to be arguing over where the baby's nationality is going to be. And it is so.
It is so.
All right, let's take up at verse 13, please. And let's read 8 verses. Yeah, do I have a reader? Verse 13.
And the sons of Issachar, Tola, and Puah, and Yod, and Shimron, and the sons of Zebulun, Sered, and Elon, and Yael. These were the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Yaakov and Padan Aram, with his daughter Dinah. All the beings, his sons and his daughters, were 33. Verse 16. And the sons of Gad, Siphion, and Hagi, Shuni, and Etzbon, Eri, Erodai, and Areli. And the sons of Asher, Yimna, and Yishwa, and Yishwi, and Beriah, and Sarah, their sister. And the sons of Beriah, Heber, and Malchiel. These were the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter. And these she bore to Yaakov, 16 beings. The sons of Rahel, Yaakov's Isha, Joseph, and Benjamin. You said 18? I mean, you said 8 verses?
Yeah.
Verse 20. And to Joseph and the land of Mitzrayim were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Aseneth, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bore to him. Verse 21. And the sons of Benjamin, Bela and Becher, and Ashbel, Gera, and Naaman, Ehi, or Ehi, and Rosh, Mipam, and Hupam, and Ar. And it is so.
And it is so. For them names.
Right.
We're going to learn the names. Now, once again, it's important. Excuse me. Genealogy is important. Why is it important? Because when you begin to read, whether you can pronounce the names or not, when you're able to see them in the writings, you're able to know who was situated where and what tribe they were from. That's important. Why? Because many times when you see a lot of the fighting and a lot of the bickering, you see who's bickering and fussing, and you see whose children it is that are bickering and fussing. Right. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Just like in today's term, we would say, well, you know, that's Ron, them children over there fighting. That's Ron's son's son fighting with Pookie. And Pookie is fighting with Ray Ray's son's son, and his name is Darren. So you look at the end and you say, okay, now we understand the lineage or the generation. We see they are the ones fighting, but let's look at the root. Let's look at who they come from. So you're able to see the parents that at the beginning or at the start. So genealogy is very important, because especially with us as a people, because it helps us once again to know who was where and what was taking place. Excuse me. And to know the order of things. Now, excuse me, very important. Once again, talk about even Jochebed, knowing that she was born there, or born to them. Now, the sons of Zilpah, the sons of Rachel, Yaakov's wife, normally the wives, Leah and Rachel, are enumerated before their maids. Zilpah and Bilhah here, however, they are enumerated according to the number of their children, from the highest to the lowest, because the purpose is to show how the 70 are made up, and so Zilpah precedes Rachel. Nevertheless, special esteem is paid to Rachel by her designation as Yaakov's Isha. Only Rachel is so designated because she was the Isha for whom he served Laban. So once again, understanding how things are categorized and how things are put out there. And the reason it's important to understand is so that we won't believe that things were just all over the place. Once again, and this also is to help us understand that it was not according to Yaakov's desire to have more than one wife. He was not into polygamy, but he was thrust into polygamy. That is why he always made reference, or reference is always made as her being his ish, and she being the one that was special to him. We know that when he saw her at the well, he started crying and he kissed her. You know, everything probably was going through him. I don't have a dime to my name. I just have clothes on my back. But he was willing to do. Now, mind you, he only worked for her. The first 7 years was supposed to be for her. But then Laban, slipped one in on him and said, well, we don't do that here. The oldest daughter, which he could have told him that in the beginning. But he knew that there possibly would have been a change, because, Yaakov probably would have did one of them things and, you know what, I'm going back home. I just had to sneak back home and grab something. But he was willing to work, and he worked 7 years for her. Excuse me. And then when he found out that he had been beguiled, he said, well, I'll just work 7 more to get her. So he actually worked 14 years for Rachel. He never worked for Leah. He never worked for anybody else but for her. So she was the Isha, and not only was she his Isha, but she was his Ahab. He Ahabed her, and that's why it was always shown. So even though in regards to the status, she still trumped them all, because she was his Ish. Are you hearing me? Even though she was the second, she still was the first, because he didn't. Like I said, Laban messed it up. And this is why, once again, it's important that we understand. We read with understanding and not just read because that's what we want to do.
That's right.
Because he did not want that. And you see it through how he dealt with his sons.
That's right.
You see that. And so it's important for us to understand, don't create something.
Right.
That was the exception and not the rule. Are you following me?
Yes.
Exception, not a rule. Don't make a rule. Don't make an exception. Don't make a rule out of an exception.
Right.
Never do that. And it is so. Now, once again, very important that it gives us mapim and hapim. Sound like twins. Excuse me. These are the sons of Rachel, who were born to Yaakov. All the souls of 14. Now, if you look and see, all of them had sons, and you even see where Benjamin. And the sons of Benjamin, Bela and Becher and Ashbel, Gera and Naaman, Eha, Rosh, Muppim and Huppim and Ard. So when you see Benjamin had children too, by this time he has a Ish and he's having sons. Now you have to understand something. There were daughters, more than 2 or 3 daughters born in that in there.
Right.
They're just not mentioned. You can't make me believe. I mean, I have 7 boys and I prayed for 2 front tails. Please, I need some girls. I don't want to just have all boys, but I ahab my sons. I ahab them. Truly, I do. From my oldest to my baby, every last one of them, I ahab them to life. And so whenever a woman has sons, it shows strength and it shows power. It does.
Right.
I'm believing, Abba Yahuwah, that all my sons will be with me in ministry. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And so it's important we understand I have 7. And in between those 7, I have 2 daughters that I prayed for. And Abba Yahuwah showed me that I was going to have them. He showed me I was going to have 2 girls. I thought I was going to have twins, but I had them 19, 17, 16 months apart, 15, 14, about 19, anywhere from about 18 months apart. My frocktails, but I have 7 sons and 2 girls. 7 is the number of completion.
Right.
So I have 7, but I know there had to be some girls, and even with them, there had to be girls in the lineage. Because if not, then what was going to happen? How they going to marry? So once again, we have to be able to see there's certain things. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important. All right, but he had sons too, and he had quite a few sons. Excuse me. I think out of them, Joseph was the only one that only had 2. So you have to understand, yeah, he only had 2. So you have to understand something. Now, understand what I'm about to say. It doesn't, Yahuwah is not looking at the amount. He's looking at the heart and what he can do with the ones that are born. Verse 23, let's finish reading, please.
The son of Dan, Hushim, and the sons of Naphtali, Yazil, Gunai, Yezer, and Shulim. These were the sons of Bilhah, who Laban gave to Rachel, his daughter. And she bore these to Yaakov, 7 persons in all. And all the persons who went with Yaakov to Mitzrayim, who came from his body, besides Yaakov's sons, wives, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph, who were born to him in Mitzrayim, were 2 persons. And all the persons of the house of Yaakov, who went to Mitzrayim, were 70. Then he sent Yehuda before him to Joseph to point out before him the way to Goshen. And they came to the land of Goshen. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father, Yasharal. And he presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. And Yasharal said to Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen your face, because you are still alive. Then Joseph said to his brothers, his others, and to his uncle's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh and say to him, my uncles who are of my uncle's house, who are in the land of Canaan, have come to me. And it is so.
And it is so. Go ahead and finish reading that. That's one. Actually, read all the way to verse 33.
And the men are shepherds, for their occupation has been to feed livestock, and they have brought their flocks, their herds, and all that they have. So it shall be when Pharaoh calls you and says, what is your occupation? That you shall say, your servant's occupation has been with livestock from our youth even till now, both we and also ours, that you may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Mitzrayim. And it is so.
And it is so. Now, once again, the reunion and being able to meet. So when they get together and they are truly at a point in their lives that now this once again has come to a climatic part, and he's able to look upon the son that he thought had been marred by an animal. He's now being able to touch him, to smell him, and to handle him. You know, it's something about the smell of your child or a person that you a hog. Yes, we do have a smell. I'm not talking about a sticky smell. There is just something about that fragrance that you have, and you know your children. You know them because there is a fragrance that comes with them. Are you following me?
Yes.
And so to smell him, to touch him, and to be able to embrace him after all those years, knowing that he was not dead, but he believing that he was, is now, you know, this point. So it says a while, he probably was there for hours, but to them, it wasn't hours. It was probably just minutes and moments, because it could never make up for all of the years that he was not there. Are you following me?
Yes.
So you know that you have to understand that was a celebration. Now watch what Yaakov says, Yasharal says to him, he says, now let me die, since I have seen thy face, that thou art yet alive. And it's like Joseph didn't pay him any attention.
Right.
He told his brother, he said, come on, let's and he said unto his brethren and unto his Abba's house, and unto his Abba's house, but he never directly said this to him. I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and will say unto him, my brethren and my Abba's house, who were in the land of Canaan, are come to me. So understand, he's saying you have to understand what is being basically spoken, but not spoken. You didn't get here to die. You did not come back to be a part of my life for you to die.
Right.
And we've already lived like this for 30 something years.
Right.
No, we ain't going back through that. It ain't time for you to go nowhere yet. We're about to live. You're about to experience life at my hands. Are you following me?
Yes.
I'm about to take care of you in the way that I wanted to take care of you, but it wasn't time. But now is the time for me to take care of you in the way I'm supposed to take care of you. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand this and to really see this. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now you have to understand, once again, in verse 28, he tells Yehuda to take the way. He says to show the way before him, that before Yaakov's arrival, Yehuda should make the necessary preparations for him to settle in Goshen. So this is important too, because now we see where, even though Reuben is the oldest, we see Yehuda is the one that's taking the lead and doing things. I believe because he trusted him when he told him, I'm going to take him and bring him back. I'm going to do just that. Believe me, I'm going to take him and I'm going to bring him back. And I believe that was one of the things that also that helped to solidify his belief in Yehuda. I believe that was important too. Joseph made ready his chariot. He harnessed the horses with his own hands in esteem of his Abba. He ordered his chariot to be made ready. He presented himself unto him. Joseph presented himself to his Abba from the midst of his retinue of servants, not waiting for Yaakov to come to his chariot. So he basically got down, and mind you, everybody was supposed to show homage and esteem to him, but he understood who his Abba was without title. He understood that he was the chosen of Abba Yahuwah. He understood that it is through him that nations, are you following me, would come through. Yes. And that the lineage of Yasharal would expand. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
So he understood, I understand I'm the governor here, but you have to understand one greater than me is here. And that is my Abba. Because why? Because the presence and the purpose of why all of this is set up is because of him, Yaakov, because of Yasharal. This is why this is happening here, so that he could take care of us and watch this and put him in the land that he promised him. So understand, it's important that we see these things. Very important that we see these things. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
So it's important that we understand that. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Very important that we see these things. Mm-hmm. All right. Now let me die. Let me, or I will die the once. The plain meaning is this is the Targum. Even if I should now die, I will be comforted since I have seen thy face. The Midrash interprets, I had thought to die a double death in this world and in the next, for Yahuwah would hold me responsible for your death. Now that you are alive, I will die only one death. I had other troubles in my life. Salvation came only to be followed by more sorrows. Now, after this great salvation, I pray that I may die before any fresh sorrow comes unto me. You know how people say, well, this situation is happening, so, I'm ready to get out of this because I don't want nothing else to happen, so I'm going to do this. But you have to understand that was not the plan of Abba Yahuwah. And once again, fear hath torment. And fear will cause you to say and do some crazy things.
That's right.
And so we can't operate in fear. We have to operate in knowing that Abba Yahuwah is our comforter, our keeper, and that he has not brought us or put us on this path to leave us.
That's right. That's right.
He has not. The men are shepherds. Read this from the Zondervan, where it talks about all shepherds are detestable to the Mitzrayim. By identifying themselves as shepherds, Yaakov's clan offers assurance that they are not coming to take Mitzrayim farmland or get involved in politics. Flocks and herds were kept by Mitzrayim during all periods and were used for meat, milk, and wool or hides, as well as for sacrifices. More cattle than sheep and goats. They are depicted in reliefs, models, and tomb paintings. Remains are found in excavations, and deities were associated with the ram and the cow, but not the sheep or the goat, all demonstrating the pervasive penetration of these animals into Mitzrayim culture. In contrast, sheep and goats do not figure promptly in fables, metaphors, or personal names, which indicates that they were considered rather common. It is difficult to ascertain whether shepherds were detested because of associations of shepherds with foreigners with a low status in society, or with sheep and goats as inferior animals that threaten farmland. Extant Mitzrayim records offer no insight on this comment. One thing I do want to say is, excuse me, there is one rendering, or a few renderings. One of the renderings is, once again, is that they did worship the sheep, and they also worship the cow. If you look in many of the writings, you will see that on the in many of the hieroglyphics, you will see the bull. If there's a bull, then you know that the cows would follow. And so many theologians also believe that they did worship these animals, and because they were not really not all of them, I can't say all of them, but there were those that were vegetarians or vegans, that they did not eat meat, and that they basically would esteem the animals as being human, and they would use them not so much in sacrifices, but they esteemed them. And so this is why they did not like them, because of their treatment of them, and because they would basically use them for sacrifices and also eating, and then to keep them, corralled and basically. So that's another rendering of it. So it's important that we understand that this was told, and Joseph knew the reason for telling them this, because he said they are detested, or they are an abomination to them. So regardless of whether someone is able to give a authentic interpretation of what he said, we know that he said it and they complied. That's what's most important. That's what's most important. And we don't ever figure out why he told them that. We do know this much. It was important for them to comply to these instructions, and they did so. That's what's the most important thing for us to understand and walk away with this. Excuse me. And it is so. Yeah, now this is one rendering as well. An abomination unto the Mitzrayim, because they worshiped sheep. They despise shepherds because they despise sheep both as food and as for sacrifices. The Mitzrayim were not meat eaters and would not allow anyone to kill sheep, as was still the custom with Indians. They held shepherds in contempt because they drank sheep's milk. Even now the people of India do not eat or drink anything derived from living creatures. And you know that they have them pictures where you see them fat cows walking around talking about these people are starving to death. Well, shame on them. They need help. Shame on them. And the cow fatter than you, eating and living better than you, and you won't eat it because that's your God? That's your protector? Well, you know what? Then pray to him and help you get on up. Are you following me? Yes. It's just the truth. So once again, it's very important for us to understand these principles and understand these things. Excuse me. That has taken place. All right, let's get a little more reading in. We're still in chapter 40. We're in chapter 47 now, right?
Yes.
All right, let's read. We have 27 verses in this. Let's finish these 27 verses out, please. Yes. Let's do 8.
Chapter 47, verses 1 through 8. Joseph went to inform Pharaoh and said, "My Abba and brothers, with their flocks, herds, and everything they own, have come from the land of Canaan and are now in the land of Goshen." From all of his brothers, he selected 5 men and presented them before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph's brothers, "What do you do?" They said to Pharaoh, "Your servants are shepherds, both we and our ancestors." They continued, "We've come to the land as immigrants because the famine is so severe in the land of Canaan that there are no more pastures for your servants' flocks. Please allow your servants to settle in the land of Goshen." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since your Abba and brothers have arrived, the land of Mitzrayim is available to you. Settle your Abba and brothers in the land's best location. Let them live in the land of Goshen, and if you know capable men among them, put them in charge of my own livestock." Joseph brought his Abba Yaakov and gave him an audience with Pharaoh. Yaakov baruched Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said to Yaakov, "How old are you?"
Go ahead, read it.
Okay. Yaakov said to Pharaoh, "I've been a traveler for 130 years. My years have been few and difficult. They don't come close to the years my ancestors lived during their travels." And it is so.
And it is so. Huh. Wow. Now you have to understand something. Look at how this thing is set up. He sends him, he says, now look, he had to choose 5 of his brothers that he knew would be able to go in and dialogue with Pharaoh. He has 12, but he only selected 5 so that they could go in and be able to talk with him. And I'm sure he chose the 5 that were more skilled, well-spoken, and able to talk, because remember, they kept Yaakov's sheep. So they knew what they needed to do, but he had to select 5, like I say, could go in and dialogue with him and then be able to answer questions, which I'm sure we probably don't have all of them in the writings, but we do have enough to substantiate and to show us what was taking place. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
And so now he hears of them, and he's able to talk, and he gives them the land of Goshen, and they're getting the best place. Because remember, he told me, he said, y'all gonna get the best place. You're gonna get the best land here. So be prepared. Excuse me. And so he says, now when he asks you, you tell him. And they said unto Pharaoh, the servants are shepherds, both we and our abbas. Now remember, they humbled themselves and they said, we are here as shepherds. We are here as servants. We're here because of the famine. Because you got to remember, when you bring in that many people in, you got to make sure you come and you approach the one that's in charge in a manner that is not defensive. Because you can imagine that could have gone wrong. Now I want to take a sidebar real quick, right here, real quick. I've been talking on community on Yom Kamishi. And the reason I've been talking about community is because we got to understand how to enter community and how to dwell among people that are in community already, or how to establish community. Somebody said, well, how do you know about that? Because number one, I've dealt with community, even if it was even on a small size, or dealing with people for a limited time. I've still dealt with it enough to understand you have to come and present yourself in a manner that's not defensive.
Right.
You can't go on somebody else's property and try to take over. You can't go in somebody's home and try to take over. You can't go in somebody's store, anybody's place that belongs to them and not you, and try to take over. You have to present yourself in a manner that you are coming because you were welcomed here, or because you were invited here, and not because you just got the notion in your head just to show up. It's important we understand that. Why is it important to understand that? Because when building, in order for community and building to take place and it be done in a fashion to where everybody is going to be satisfied and be gratified by it, there has to be a way that you enter in. If you enter in wrong, you're going to have to leave in a manner that may not be to your liking. That's important to understand. So when he presents them, he gives them the rundown. They don't know anything about the culture or the lifestyle of Mitzrayim. They don't know the do's and the don'ts until he presents it to them. And when he presents it to them, guess what? They have no problem with with conforming to it.
That's right.
With conforming to it. And so when they conform to this, they understand now we just can't go in here anyway. So he talks to them and they're able to talk to him on a level that he is not talking to them in a condescending way, and they are not answering him in a condescending way, but they're able to talk and come to an agreement where they understand why they're there. Right. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand.
Right.
And so now relationship is being built here with this Pharaoh. It's being built here. And so now as they're going in, he says to them, and it says in verse 4, and they said unto Pharaoh, to sojourn in the land are we come, for there is no pasture for thy servants' flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now, therefore, we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen. Now, mind you, they've already been invited and accepted, but they want to make sure that on their part, that they are also making it known that they accept and they respect what he's doing. And they just want to do their part by showing that we want to live here and that we accept your offer. And we want to do everything we can to make this prosperous and also make it a healthy, long relationship.
Yes.
These are things we need to know about. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important. This is why I believe when people do get in communities and they keep them a secret, is because they're not ready to put other people on the community, because they don't want to deal with people, because now they got to train people all over. And if you don't have a person that's like a mediator to help you to understand what's going on or dealing with people, it can really become ugly and it can become really bad.
True.
So it's important that we understand how they did this. And this is also a great formula for people entering into community, entering somebody else's possession, and they're giving you, watch this, the right to occupy it, knowing we know that it was going to become theirs. But you're going to occupy there and stay there, but understanding that there are still limitations.
Right.
Verse 5, and Pharaoh spoke unto Joseph, saying, thy Abba and thy brethren are come unto thee, and the land of Mitzrayim is before thee. In the best of the land, make thy Abba and thy brethren to dwell in the land of Goshen. Let them dwell. Now, once again, you have to understand, I believe that what made this become a sealed deal is because they were able to deal with him, watch this, and not have Joseph be their spokesman. There are times that you're going to have to talk on your own and speak up for yourself, even though, watch this, the person that opened the door for you is there. Now, you got to be able to talk and be able to show the person that has opened this door for you, and that the person that is the open door is, they don't have to worry about you doing something foolishly and messing things up. So they had to be able to talk for themselves and convey what their expectations was, and what they understood the expectations of them was. They had to be able, to deal with them. Are y'all following me? Yes. Deal in a manner that they were able to be accepted on the land. And I believe this is why Pharaoh wanted to talk to them. So it wouldn't be like, okay, I'm talking to you, but let me hear their thoughts. Let me hear it come from their mouth. Let me make sure that they are able to convey to me what how they understand they're supposed to live on this land.
Yes.
That's important for us to understand, because if you have somebody always speaking up for you, then how does a person know what your words are? How does a person know what is on your heart? So and understand this was still business until it turned to something else. So this was still a business arrangement. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
And if thou knowest any able men among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. So now also opportunities to expand and to be a part of, this of his keeping of his cattle now has been open to them. Which I don't believe the sons, the 12 sons did it, but I believe they sent some of their servants to do it. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
But now this is help us to understand how an open door, this was the door that opened for many of, watch this, those that were a part of Yasharal to get into places that were a part of Pharaoh's house and become a part of his council and become a part of the things they were doing. Why? Because if you start low and you are a person that is trainable and you could be trained and you're able to adapt to certain things, I believe this is how many of them were able to shift from being herdsmen to being in other distinguished positions in Pharaoh's house. So later on, we will see, and I will point that out to you to show you that there were Mitzrayim, I mean, not Mitzrayim, there were Yashreelites that were in Pharaoh's house that was telling him to do things that were abominable, that were horrible to the children of Yasharal. And it is so.
And it is so.
And so now and Yosef brought in Yaakov his Abba and set him before Pharaoh. And Yaakov Baruch Pharaoh. Now you have to understand, it doesn't tell us what all he said, but I'm sure that there was some things that he brought out in the Baruching or the prayer that he said. And this is why Pharaoh said, how old are you? Because I'm sure he went way back. He went deep in. He went in deep and he hit some pockets and he hit some places that he's probably thinking, okay, you got to tell me how old you are.
Right.
And I'm sure he didn't look his age. There was something that triggered that made him inquisitive about the age of Yaakov. That's why it's important that when we open our mouths, that people don't look at us and say, yeah, they're fools. They're fools. I don't care how old or how young they are a fool.
Right.
But when you open your mouth, somebody has to say, I need to know, what is your age? Why does that matter? Why? Because the wisdom that is upon you is greater than the age that you have given me. So you have to understand there was a reason for that. Excuse me. He said, how many are the days of the years of thy life? And Yaakov said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of the Yamims of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. Few and evil have been the Yamim of the years of my life, and they have not attained unto the Yamim of the years of the life of my Abbas in the Yamim of their sojournings. And if you notice, that's one thing about our ancestors that we must incorporate in. They always incorporated the ancestors and forefathers. They always said something positive. They always kept them as role models, the ones that walked in truth. That's why he always made sure he kept his Abba in his mouth. He always made positive references concerning Isaac. He always did. And these are the things that we should do. These are the things that we should do. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
We're almost finished. We have a few more verses and we're almost finished, y'all. And Yaakov Baruch Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. Now you have to understand, once again, I'm sure he spoke into his Ruach and he said some things to him that this is why I believe it wasn't recorded. Because it wasn't for us to know. It wasn't for us, because you know how we take stuff. Many of our people take stuff and we'll do stuff and be crazy with it. But it was said in private for their ears and for the Abba, because the Abba was the one that was giving it to him. Because remember, Yaakov was one who spoke into the lives of people. He caused things to change. He was one that made stuff happen.
Right.
And he spoke into the life of Pharaoh, and it was left concealed. And that's the way it's supposed to be, concealed and not brought out. And it is so. Verse 11, and Joseph placed his Abba and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Mitzrayim and the best of the land in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph sustained his Abba and his brethren and all his father's household with bread according to the want of their little ones. So he was taking care of home and he wasn't sweating it. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
He didn't have no problem with it because he told him that was what he was going to do. That's what you call wealthy. He was not rich. He was wealthy. Now you have to understand the difference between being wealthy at the hand of Yahuwah and being wealthy by your own recognizance. Being wealthy by Yahuwah means that not only do you have wealth, but you have esteem.
Right.
You are esteemed by all. Are you following me?
Yes.
That's when you know it's by Yahuwah. But because you have wealth doesn't make you now popular.
Right.
You got people that have wealth and they are hated because they don't know how to carry themselves.
Right.
And so it's important that we understand and see the difference. Joseph was wealthy and Joseph was esteemed by Abba Yahuwah and by all those that were around him because of the way he conducted himself, by the way he carried himself, which is so important for us to learn. Will there ever be someone like Joseph? I don't believe so. Why? Because that was during that time. Will there be somebody that we can say, boy, they are, if we had to equate them, we could say they're like Joseph in our day and time? I believe so. But that is something that the Abba has to do, and not us just pray for it to be done, but that's something that he has to see fit to bring forth. Because we can fast and pray all day long, but if that's not his will, then it won't be done.
That's right.
And it is so.
It is so.
So once again, he was able to take care of the little ones. Now, mind you, they ain't like they were struggling now. Let's make sure we understand that they weren't struggling. It was a famine. But this is what he was put in place to do. And I believe this was Abba Yahuwah's way of showing them, in spite of what's going on, you have this, but I'm still going to add on to what you already have. And it is so. All right, let's finish reading. Verse 13.
Verse 13. But there was no food in the entire region, so the famine was very severe. The land of Mitzrayim and the land of Canaan were exhausted by the famine.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph collected all the money to be found in the land of Mitzrayim and the land of Canaan in exchange for the grain they were purchasing. And he brought the money to Pharaoh's palace. When the money from the land of Mitzrayim and the land of Canaan was gone, all the Mitzrayim came to Joseph and said, "Give us food. Why should we die here in front of you? The money is gone." And Joseph said, "Give me your livestock. Since the money is gone, I will give you food in exchange for your livestock." So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and he gave them food in exchange for their horses and herds of sheep, herds of cattle, and donkeys.
Mm-hmm.
That year he provided them with food in exchange for all their livestock. When that year was over, then came the next year and said to him, "We cannot hide from our master that the money is gone and that all our livestock is lost. There is nothing left for our master except our bodies and our land. Why should we die here in front of you, both us and our land? Buy us and our land in exchange for food. Then we with our land will become Pharaoh's slaves. There will that we can live and not die, and so that the land won't become desolate." In this way, Joseph acquired all the land in Mitzrayim for Pharaoh, because every Mitzri sold his fields since the famine was so severe for them. The land became Pharaoh's, and Joseph moved to the people's cities from one end to Mitzrayim to the other. And it is so.
And it is so. All right, now, once again, he's a governor. He is a man of vision. Are you following me?
Yeah.
All right, I'm just marking this real quick. Very important for us to see this and see the plan. This is a phenomenal plan. Excuse me. Now, once again, he had to have something in order so that when things began to truly, remember now, this was 7 years of famine, not 5, but 7. The first 2 years, you don't feel the pinch. The third year, you start feeling it just a tiny bit. That fourth year, you start really getting the handle and reality starts setting in. Yo, we're in a famine. By that 4th and 5th year, you really start saying, no, we really, really are in a famine. So he had to have a system in place to where it could not just be, everything could not be exhausted. He had to do it. So it shows us play by play what he did. Excuse me. There was no bread in all the land. This resumes the story of the famine from its first year, since he explains on verse 19 that the famine ceased when Yaakov came to Mitzrayim. The famine. Now they're saying that the famine, when Yaakov got there, that it stopped. Can't say that. Are you following me?
Yes.
We can't say that it stopped, because if it's a famine for 7 years, nowhere is it given that there is a break in the famine. Nowhere. Are y'all following? So we can't put what's not there. And in the land of Canaan, but the inhabitants of most distant countries did not come to Mitzrayim, either because the distance was too great or perhaps the famine was too severe there. Brought the money into Pharaoh's house. He did not enrich himself. Now you have to understand, not only did he put the money in Pharaoh's house, but also the money that, according to the writings of Yasher, when that money was collected, he put money in, he had, I think it was 10 places he put money. He put money in Pharaoh's house. He also buried money in Mitzrayim, and then he gave his family money. Now, somebody would say, but wouldn't that be unfair for him to do that? He told him he would take care of them. Now, mind you, he's getting paid for his job. This is his job to be governor. So any money and anything that he gives to them comes from him working and doing what he was hired to do. So he was not out of order by helping them and putting money in their pocket and giving them the necessities that they needed. He was not out of order because he was taking it out of his stuff, not out of that which belonged to Mitzrayim. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. Y'all with me?
Yes.
All right. Excuse me. Now he goes in, and like I say, this is set. This has to be set up. Why? Because if not, you will exhaust everything you have. Now, if he didn't do it in waves, by that last time, nobody would be able to. Are you following me?
Yeah.
Nothing would be able to be done. And I hope you're not doing what I think you're doing. Nothing would be able to be done. Are you following me?
Yes.
All right. 15, in the land of Canaan, all the Mitzrayim came. They argued that since there was no more money left in Canaan, there was no purpose in holding the corn since no other buyers would apply for it. That is the point of mentioning that the money was also spent in the land of Canaan. So it's important that we understand the exchange that was taking place. Are you following me?
Yes.
Exchange. Now he had to, the money, when we say money was all gone, in other words, the money had already been put where it was allotted for. Now they had to come up with another means, because you have to understand, they still had to invest. You still had to invest. It was already foretold. This is going to happen. This is going to get what you need. Are you following me?
Yes.
Once again, this is a plan that is set up for famine. And if we don't read over these things and we don't look at these things in depth, when things start really getting hard for a lot of people, what are you going to do? This is why it's important that we have collateral, that you have something to barter with. Because when the money is worth nothing, once again, I said that the dollar is about what, 50 cents or 75 cents? Probably 50 cents by now. We need to find out, but it's about 50 cents probably by now. It is important for us to understand that if we don't understand exchange and we don't understand bartering and we don't understand putting certain things away, that come time for the waves, if you've already exhausted one means, when it comes for the second wave, what are you going to have? Then the third wave, then the fourth wave, then a fifth wave, sixth and a seventh wave. If you don't have anything or you've exhausted all of your means, then what are you going to do?
Right.
You have nothing. And this is important for us to understand and recognize what is being shown to us as a people here. Now it says, he fed them. He gently led them bread in small quantities, as it is right in time of famine. Furthermore, overeating after a period of hunger leads to fatal illnesses. For that year, the 6th year, who does not accept, it says this happened in that 6th year, which is also of the Midrash. Now, once again, it's important that we understand they had to also adjust their way of life. Whenever you hear that something is happening, it is always important that we adjust to fit what's coming about. If you've ever been in the water and there are waves, you're on the beach, you adjust yourself for that wave, because if not, you'll be knocked out into the sea somewhere. So you adjust yourself. Are you following me?
Yes.
You adjust yourself. You plant your feet so when these things come, you won't be easily moved. It is the same thing when we are setting up for different things, calamity, hard times, crises. That's coming. And you have to, now watch this, everybody had to prepare for it. Well, I don't have enough. I don't make enough. If you can make enough to buy your wants, then you can prepare for the needs in the long run.
That's right.
That's right.
That's important for us to understand. I know it seems long and I know people thinking, girl, you can go. But this is important for us because this has to be made known to us as a people.
Right.
We already see the condition of things. Anytime they tell the government shuts down and then they put people's stuff on hold, Are you following me? And everybody may not have access to certain things. Well, for the people that's not doing things, you have to understand things are going to happen. Let me show you something. Last month, I believe it was. Yeah, last month, the credit union that we are in, they got robbed. And normally, the day they got robbed, I wasn't there. I came the day after. But normally, I'm in and out of there, in and out. And so they said that somebody from the school robbed the credit union. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because when you get desperate people will do desperate things. Not only did the people rob the credit union, but up the road, there is wood all on in the front of this store. Why? Because it was robbed. We've seen about 4 or 5, right? Stores that have had to board up their doors. Why? Because people, even though many of us may not see these things, people are desperate and people are saying, me and mine, I don't care about you and yours.
Right.
And so it is important for us to prepare. To prepare. It's not a sin to prepare, but what becomes a sin is when you sit back and you know what you can do and you don't do it.
That's right.
That becomes a sin. And so it is important that we understand that Joseph had everything set up. So when these waves came, everybody would still be able to benefit because they've done what they are supposed to do. Key thing, when you're given instructions, listen to them and follow them because it's going to help you in the long run. It's going to preserve your life. We don't listen, then we can't fault nobody but ourselves. A storm is coming. Oh, well. Now you on top of your house or you somewhere in Hawaii because you done been swept away because you didn't listen. You can't blame nobody for that but yourself. Are you following me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand that. All right. So now they're saying, look, after they go through this, now it says for that year. Now in the second year of the famine, it is meant the second year after the money was spent, which was the 7th of the famine. We will not hide. Apparently, we will not hide that we still have cattle, for even if our money were all spent and our cattle were by now yours, we would say, wherefore should we die? In other words, they're saying, look, we ain't dead yet. We still got something we can borrow with. Are you following me?
Yes.
This is why it is always important when we get certain things and we're able to do it. I tell people, you got to have that money, what we call mad money. That's your money you buy your wants and your desires. But there comes a time where that mad money, especially depending on what you have and during the time, mad money can't be mad money no more because you got to look at the bigger picture. Okay, I gotta buy to prepare. Stoves, are you hearing me? Butane stoves, buying those, water filters, buying those type of things, buying things that's going to help in the time of a crisis, especially when we're in that time. It's just the time that crises are going to happen. Does that mean that, people say, well, that means I'm putting my life on hold? No, it doesn't. It means you're living to live again. And you're using wisdom in your investments. You're investing in not just yourself, but you're investing hopefully in helping somebody else. And so this is important that we understand investment as well. Very important. And so here we see he does this. And now when you look in verse 19, it says, buy us and our land. I heard somebody say, well, we can't look at Mitzrayim as a prototype for community because they began to be slaves. No, they willingly sold themselves because they understood we've got to eat. We've got to feed our mishpachah. We have to do what we need to do. And if we don't do this, we won't survive. They willingly, he says, buy us and our land. They offered to sell themselves too. But in this verse, in verse 20, we read that he only bought their land, stipulating that they should work it forever as tenants and pay part of the proceeds to Pharaoh as rent. That was what he meant when he said to them, behold, I have bought you this yam and your land. See, you got to understand. And this is where the penal system really messes up. You put a man in jail and say, well, this is how we're punishing him. But now taxpayers have to pay to keep that keep that system running. Am I right or am I wrong?
Right.
Now you have to do that. You put him in jail And he can't do nothing. But watch this. But he works in the penal system, and all the money that's in there goes back into that system. But watch this, on the outside, things are falling apart.
Right.
Make that man work and make him pay the debt that he owes society. But watch this. He's free, but he's not. He's free, but he's not.
Mhm.
He still owes a debt to the parents or to the people that he has done wrongfully. He still owes a debt. You got them brothers up in there sleeping, eating, ain't worried, man. It was done. I ain't worried about it. Well, how long you gonna be here? Oh, I got some years. I ain't going nowhere. While the people outside are suffering.
Right.
Make them pay for the funeral. Make them pay and keep up the mortgage on the house.
Right.
If it was a man that life was lost and he had a mishpachah. Are y'all follow me? Make him pay. Don't put him in jail. To me, that's the easy way out. Because now he has to pay for nothing. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
He doesn't have to pay for anything. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
He doesn't have to pay for anything. He has what? 3 hots and a cot.
Yeah.
And then he can go to school free.
Yeah.
While the people or the family is out suffering. Make him pay. That is how you keep the economy and you keep things flowing. Without those things in place, guess what happened? Now you got to collapse. Because now, guess what? Now other systems and other people have to work hard because of something somebody else done. He said, no, work the land and you pay Pharaoh rent. So you know Pharaoh was so happy to have somebody like him in his corner because he understood for every corner he got to, he was able to turn it. For everything that was presented to him, he had an answer.
Right.
That is what is also needed. To be able to give an answer to certain questions, to be able to help people. I believe debt-free living.
Oh, yeah.
Debt-free living. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Somebody say debt-free living.
Debt-free living.
Say it again. Debt-free living.
Debt-free living.
Debt-free living means I'm not paying nobody for anything, period. Because when you are debt-free, it frees your hands up and it gives you the ability to do more. When we have to pay for it, guess what happens? That means we can't afford it. We can't afford it because now you got interest rate. I'm telling you what I know because I'm living that now. Are you following me?
Yes.
You have to pay for it. But my goal is, and it continues to be, is debt-free living. Abba Yahuwah, give me a plan and give me a steam that I can write up a plan, present it, pay my debts off, and be debt-free living.
Yes.
Because then you can apply that money somewhere else. Pay off your car, pay off your mortgage, pay off anything you have. And if you can't pay cash for it, don't use it. Even though I know now they are trying to push us heavily and push us hard to use them cards. They're pushing hard to use them cards. Then they want to make you feel inferior to them, the stores do, when you go pull out and you pay for cash. Now they got markers where they're sitting up there or they taking your money. And I just sit up there, and there are times that I want to jump across that counter and knock the people in the head that's doing it. Excuse me. I told one person, and I've told many of people this. I said, I have a major problem with this. I said, 1, it's not posted. 2, I've never bought any fake money in here to you. So why are you questioning my integrity when I'm paying for these groceries or this stuff? Well, we are told to do everybody. I said, I'm not everybody. I said, I can see if I came in here and passed some bad bills off on you, then you have every right to check my money.
Right.
But this is your first time seeing me. You've never seen me before. But now you got to take my money, hold it up in the air, flip it around like you just don't care. And then I'm sitting here and everybody behind me looking like, I wonder if some money real. Right. One lady, I just had to get her told real quick because she's going to check my money. But the Korean lady in front of me, she didn't even check her money. She going to mark my money, then hold it up to the light. I was like, oh, no, I've had my fool. You didn't mark it. It showed you that it's great money. Ain't nothing wrong with it. But now you're going to hold it up to the light. I said, now my question is, why did you have to go to that second extent? Right. Well, I'm doing my job. I said, first of all, you got all these people behind me in this line looking at me like I'm trying to pull something over on you. I said, honey, my money is great. My money is great. And if I did have bad money, I sure wouldn't be going to no store. Now, the thing, once again, is using wisdom. Are you following me? Yes. They want to push us into using credit cards so that they can say, we have more people using it. So now let's just go ahead on and force the credit card on them. You have to understand it's about supply and demand. If people believe it's a demand for it, they're going to push for it. That's why they do people. We go in lines, and I'm hurrying up. We get in lines, and people literally, you got people pulling out cards, chips, everybody. And you have maybe 2 or 3 of us that are still traditional, that pay with cash. And they looking like, cash, what they doing? They still in the Stone Age. Well, I will stay in the Stone Age. Because once it's out of my hand and it's done, then I don't have to worry about no backlash. And then my question to many that use credit cards, and I'm not, once again, I'm not a hater on credit cards. I don't use them. But when they tell you you are using your money and you don't see it, how do you know they're using your money? You're just swiping a card. You don't know what they're using. It's all computerized. I want to see what I'm paying. I want to count it out. And I always count my money out to people. I don't ever just put it in their hand. I always count it out. I get people look at me stupid. I'm like, honey, I'm not. If you think I'm going to ball up my money and put it in your hand and leave it to you to count, you're stupid. I count my money out, put it in people's hands, and I count exactly out what they're supposed to have. I've had them to challenge me and say, well, you owe me this. I said, no, you better count that again. I know what I put in your hand. Are you following me? So it's important that we understand these things. Very important we understand these things. Once again, it is about a system. And operating that system that's going to help us. So he says, no, you work the land and you pay Pharaoh. But watch this, you sell me your cattle. Now, in the process of this, we can't look at it, oh, he's making Pharaoh wealthy. We got to look at it, he's making Mitzrayim wealthy. Mm-hmm. He's making Mitzrayim wealthy. Why? Because those same people that sold those cattle to Pharaoh or to Mitzrayim can turn right around and buy them right back. Mm-hmm. So we can't look at him making one person rich or wealthy. He's building the economy. He's building Mitzrayim. Mm-hmm. That's important for us to understand. And it is so.
And it is so.
All right. Now he says, although Joseph said that there was still 5 years of famine to come, it actually ceased when, once again, we understand that. But I don't believe it ceased because there's nowhere in the vision that it said it ceased. Are you following me? Yes. We have to remember it continued on for 7 years. Because then if it ceased, then we got to ask why. And then there's other stuff. We don't want to manipulate the writings or the plan and the purpose of Abba Yahuwah. Very important for us to understand that. Now, it says he removed them city by city to show that they no longer own the land or the parcel action of, it says Sennacherib. In both instances, the purpose was to prevent the people claiming ownership on the ground of possession. Joseph's purpose was to remove the possible reproach that might be levied against his brothers, that they were aliens since the Mitzrayim themselves now became strangers. And the reason now is because they're leasing their land. So technically, if you lease something, it doesn't belong to you. And technically, even though we own our land, quote unquote, we really don't own it. Because if you ever look at when you go pay your mortgage or you go pay anything on there, and trust me, I want you to challenge me on this. Look at your receipt, what it says. It says either you are a tenant or you are a caretaker of that land. But I bought it at a tax sale. I paid for it. And this house is supposed to be mine, or this land is supposed to be mine. Until we have the original, we are still just tenants and caretakers of that land.
That's right.
But Yahuwah is great. And eventually and soon, we will truly be able to say that we own our land. And I'm not just talking about when we go home. I'm talking about even here. So once again, it's important that we understand. I solicit you like Paul solicited the emissaries or the Talmudim of Yahush. He said, pray for me that doors will be open, that I may speak the word or the Besorah to the hearer. I pray that I ask you to pray for us that we're able to continue to do what we need to do to make this thing applicable and make it available to our people.
That's right.
Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That's what I solicit you for, because it is possible right here and now. So he had to, once again, in verse 21, make the distinction so there would be no brawl. And once again, you have to understand that's wisdom. Mm-hmm. That's wisdom. And in order to really be able to move forward, wisdom has to be there. And then you can't be all pompous, arrogant, and boastful and proud.
Right.
You have to be humble, and you have to walk this thing in the manner that Abba Yahuwah has given it unto us. And it is so.
And it is.
All right, let's read from verse 21 to 27.
Verse 21 reads, But as for the people, he moved them into cities from one end of the borders of Mitzrayim to the other. Only on the ground of the priests he did not buy. For the priests had portions allotted to them by Pharaoh, and they ate their portions which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore they did not sell their ground. And Joseph said to the people, Look, I have bought you and your land today for Pharaoh. Look, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall be that in the harvest you shall give 1/5 to Pharaoh, and 4/5 is your own, as seed for the field and for your food, for those of your household, and as for your little ones. And they said, You have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the eyes of my master, and we shall become Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Mitzrayim to this day, that Pharaoh should have 1/5, except for the ground of the priests only, which did not become Pharaoh's. And Yahshua dwelt in the land of Mitzrayim, and the land of Goshen, and they had possessions there, and bore fruit, and increased exceedingly. And it is so.
And it is so. Once again, look at how he was able to go in and set up things and make things happen. Like I say, every time I read this, the more I read it, the more prevalent and the more it becomes a reality that we can do the same things. Am I saying that we will become like Mitzrayim or become like Joseph? No, but I'm saying we could take the platform and tailor it for our time, and we can still have these same things. It's important that we understand support. I've said it, and you hear me say it all the time. Support Geechee farmers. No, we haven't gotten there yet, but it is our goal to get there. But you're there, and you're able to do it. Support them. Yeah. They have some great stuff that we have seen. Hebrew farmers, support our people.
Sorry.
Support. Because then when you go and buy again, guess what? You are just getting out of it what you've invested in it.
Right.
It's just a constant yield of your investment. Right. Now, and he says in verse, when he didn't take the priest's land. Now, once again, he didn't take their land because this was allotted by Pharaoh. Because remember, Pharaoh said you could do everything as up to the throne. But when Pharaoh made a decree or decision, he had to allow that to be so. Okay. And it says in verse 23, then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this yam and your land for Pharaoh. He didn't say I bought it for you. And watch this. He didn't even say he bought it for Yahuwah. He understood this is to build this land, because if you ever let a land die, it's hard to bring that land back up.
Right.
So he understood we got to keep this thing going if we're going to keep it, because if the land dies, then it can't produce. It can't bring forth anything.
Right.
Verse 24. Okay. Behold, I have brought you this yam in your land. Now, lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. He said, cultivate the land, sow in the land, bring forth. And when you make what you're going to make, guess what? Pay it to Pharaoh. Now, mind you, even though it was a famine, they were still able to prosper because why? They had a plan in place. Right. If there is no plan in place, you can't prosper. If there is no plan in place, you can't sustain yourself. And if you can't sustain yourself, you surely can't sustain nobody else. Right. Can't do it. Verse 24, and it shall come to pass at the ingatherings that you shall give 1/5 unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for food for your little ones. Now he's given him a plan to break it down so that they will understand how much is allotted to him, how much is for their sowing back into their land, and how much is for them to eat. Now watch this. They're in a famine, y'all, but they're still sowing seed, and it's still able to produce and come forth.
That's right.
So the expectation is we're going to make it, just follow the plans. Mm-hmm. Follow the plans and do what you're supposed to do. And don't eat it all up. And then don't try to put it all away. Because if you put it all away, then you're going to die, because you ain't going to get nothing back.
Right.
And verse 25 says, and they said, thou hast saved our lives. Do you know how important that is for us as a people to be able to look at one another and say, you know what, you saved me. You really got me out of that. You helped me get out of that situation. You really brought a fresh wind to my life because you've given me a plan and you've given me something that I can execute on. You've given me something that I can move and operate on. And by doing that, you have helped me to change, watch this, the course of the action of my life. That's important, very important for us as a people, very important. Let us find esteem in the sight of our emissary or sovereign, and we will be Pharaoh's bondmen. They were like, hey, you saved us, you saved our land, we whatever you want, servants, bondmen, whatever. We're here. We are not going anywhere. Why? Because you have proven to us that we can live and make it through a famine. Are you following me?
Yes.
Verse 26. And Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Mitzrayim unto this young, that Pharaoh should have the fifth. Only the land of the priests alone became not Pharaoh's. They couldn't be sold. And Yasharal dwelt in the land of Mitzrayim and the land of Goshen, and they got them possessions therein, and were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly. So you have to understand, famine, when you're in the will of Abba Yahuwah and doing what he said do. Now watch this. It is about also actions. I told you community is just not a place of handouts, but it's a place of what? Operations. It is a place of action. And because they were willing to bring forth the actions that were needed, they were able to bring forth great things. They were able, Yahuwah was able to multiply them. They were able to be fruitful exceedingly. You know what it means to be exceedingly fruitful and abundant, especially in a time of lack, means that they were being baruched above normal. Way beyond or above normal, because they were following the instructions, and they were following the instructions from the one whom he instructed. And it is so. And it is so. Once again, I pray that you have gotten a lot, and it is a lot, but it's important that we get it so that we can grow by it. Sometimes we sit in lectures and are at work for 8 hours, and you work on your job, and you take a lunch around after you've been at work for what, maybe 4 hours, been at work 4 hours, and then you take a lunch. You be in there, whether you're building guns, whether you're working on building electrical stuff, putting in hot water heaters, or putting in meters. You're working. Are you following me? Yes. Whether you're working on music or doing whatever, you sit and you do what you have to do, then you take that lunch, because you've done what you have to do. I pray once again that this yom, that you will take in what has been given and you will utilize it and apply it to your life, so that we can truly begin to get in that vein of Abba Yahuwah through Yahushua Mashiach and begin to be producers and not just consumers. Really be about the Abba's business and begin to pull ourselves away from the things that have become so common to us and customary to us, dealing and building up other people's stuff and letting our own go lacking. Once again, I pray that Abba Yahuwah will continue to endow us, continue to reveal unto us important plans and important revelations to us as a people. Recovery, restoration, revival. That is what restoration, revival. These are important unto us, as I say to you in Sabbath rest. Let him recover you. Let him restore you and revive you. Once again, keep your head up, keep your shoulders square, keep your heart and your feet in and upon the Torah, because we can't go wrong when we abide by his instructions for our lives. I want to say to you, we will be back at 7:45, 8 o'clock. Be back with us. Be back with us as we come to bring the conclusion of the matter to this, our Shabbat class. I want you to remember that I am Aliyah Yasharal, and I am the leader of Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom Hebraic Belief Ministries, located in South Carolina. Excuse me. I want you to remember, here at Messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom Hebraic Belief Ministries, this is the place where
the Torah does the body excellent.
Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah Baruch Atah and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. Also, I want you to remember that you've been touched by Champion TV, a place where the champions reside, and it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.